glass enclosure with 3 other male manatees hell-bent on the violent forced sex that I, for real, saw with my own eyes while alone one night at SeaWorld, San Diego. A distant relative of the elephant, the manatee has a prehensile upper lip which it uses to gather food. It also has a large penis. Classified as endangered, human boaters often cause serious wounds to manatees' flippers, rendering it difficult for this one poor little rescue manatee to escape a large male manatee intent on unwanted anal intercourse. One needed not to look in that little manatee victim's cold, soul-sapped eyes to know this was not the first time this had happened, nor would it be the last.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. And 603-283-6160 is the phone number for you to call if you want to get in on the conversation with us. That's 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Jay Noon.
And remotely, sorry,
Mark Edge.
So tonight we have several things we want to talk about. We're going to start off with something Mark wants to talk about. And of course, if you, listener, have something you want to bring up, feel free to change the subject or tell us what you think about what we're saying. This is from Wired, Wired.com. It says, inside Mark Zuckerberg's top secret Hawaii compound. And it's from December 14th of this year. It says Meta CEO, which is Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg is building a sprawling $100 million compound in Hawaii, complete with plans for a huge underground bunker. A Wired investigation reveals the true scale of the project and its impact on the local community. And that sounds a little creepy.
No.
Well, they're always going to say that. I mean, you know, like, oh my goodness, your property is affecting other people's property and all that stuff. I mean, exactly how is that happening? Poor George Lucas. Not that I like him for much else, but George Lucas had one hell of a time with Skywalker Ranch.
Where was that?
California.
No,
I can't remember. Was it Malibu, maybe?
So I wasn't really saying that part was creepy. That does scream of, like propaganda, like, oh, it's impacting people. But my thing that I thought was creepy is just the fact that this billionaire wants to have a huge underground bunker.
As I understand it, several billionaires are building bunkers right now. And one wonders what that holds in store for 2024. This is my biggest concern. The reason I bring it to the table is because, I mean, there's a train of thought. It doesn't mean that I think it, but I don't know whether I think it or not, that billionaires get the news before us.
Yeah.
Like maybe the stuff that's going to happen, that the plan is that they're going to happen. So I don't know.
I get that idea because just before the show, when Jay was talking about things he might want to talk about on the show tonight, one of the things he brought up was, what's his name?
Warren Buffett selling $28.7 billion in stock rings alarm bells over the economy.
Because it makes sense that he would know something that we don't know.
So here's the thing. When you have, we're basically in a financial, death spiral. Mm-hmm. So like Canada, for example, is they're trying to do a $2,000 per person UBI, universal basic income for everybody, no matter what.
Monthly?
Yes, per month. So basically what that means, that if the government's giving you $2,000, it's basically going to cost something between like $5,000 to $20,000, for the government to get that $2,000 to each and every citizen, because that's the efficiency of the red tape and bureaucracy and then the bottom line is to pay taxes, or you have to have a standing army to point guns at everybody to pay taxes, or you have to go bomb other countries to keep your currency, essentially, the leading currency. That's what the U.S. has been doing. But what it's going to do is just going to make everything like $5,000 a month more expensive for everyone that's getting that $2,000 a month up in Canada. So when you have so these billionaires all know that the system is in a death spiral. Financially, it can maintain. I mean, it's getting to the point to where, food production is on the corporate, tortured animal, Tyson,
and, yeah.
Big Cargill, Monsanto type, food processing industry. The factory farms aren't going to be able to function anymore because they all rely heavily on farm subsidies, and farm subsidies basically only exist because people still have faith in this, U.S. dollar, for example, here. So what one of the things I think we're going to see in the States is that the price of food is going to get real. And by real, I mean the subsidies aren't going to work. So you're going to have a whole bunch of people that don't live on farms that are going to get hungry and not able to feed their kids, and their EBT cards aren't going to work, or there won't be food in the grocery stores. And we're already sort of seeing this because, the food that the welfare class is feeding their children basically is all the garbage junk food, like, I talked about last week, because that's all the government subsidized stuff.
Yeah.
But when you have people that can't feed their kids, they're going to be, storming the places where they think that there's food. And they're going to be, going to the rich communities and the rich areas. Kind of another reason I like New Hampshire. Hopefully it's really, really cold when that happens, so they don't get too far.
Yeah.
But also New Hampshire is very heavily armed. I know all my neighbors are going to be able to defend themselves.
Yeah, that's something I think about.
I'm pretty sure I'm going to hear lots of gunshots, coming from the north or the south before the mobs get to my house. I'm just, that's not really a good way to play it.
Plus,
but
there's just
I'm sure that's
fewer
the way it's going to
people
go
here, and it's like they'd have to travel long distances. I think about that kind of stuff. I'm in Keene. That's the issue. I actually know that there's a welfare apartment complex that's so nice. Just like down from my street, and it makes me wonder why it's so nice.
Because government contractors probably built it, and so it probably looks nice, and they want to give it a nice a nice presentment. But is it actually nice, or is it one of these places that's like built with the cheapest materials and just looks pretty, like what most of the modern UN, United Nations influenced, homeowner association housing projects, are, around, most of the big cities here in America. But these billionaires, they know what's up. They're influencing it. I mean, of course, a guy like Zuckerberg, he's mining so much data. He knows what's going on. Like, for example, Amazon knows when a woman's pregnant before the woman knows when she's pregnant.
Wait, what? Where'd you hear that?
Oh, there's been articles about this where, and so.
Oh, because she starts craving things, starts looking things up.
Looking through things and the metadata. And don't forget, when you have the Amazon app on your phone, it is mining all the data from everything on your phone. So whatever video,
including location.
Yeah. So
like you went to your boyfriend's house or something.
Location. It knows your cycle. It knows what day of your cycle it is. It probably knows.
And lots of women actually just track their cycles on their phone.
Yep. Yeah, just giving all that information right to the beast.
Yep.
And so it understands, and the fact that it knows your cycle, so it knows like when a woman is like going to be more agitated, which is going to be, the 10 days before you start your period, progesterone starts being produced.
Yeah, that checks out.
And so like women are on edge. They're irritable. And they become worn out. So that algorithm could literally just be creating divorce by aggravating wives, for example. I'm sure it can happen.
Yeah.
And I don't see why it is. And I mean, the algorithm, especially let's say it's a Chinese influence algorithm that wants to, socially destroy America, for example, just
TikTok.
It could have at it. So, but the thing is Amazon just wants to sell you stuff. So, they gather this, but when people can't eat, when people can't get their dopamine hit from the internet device, when they've been programmed and conditioned for a lifetime, some people now, that's where they get their enjoyment from. it's going to be like way worse, than the crackhead or the heroin addict not being able to get his fix.
Wow, that's such a good point. I was telling Jay this, Mark, but yesterday Lori and I did a show together, and she brought in this story that apparently in the official mental illness, I can't remember what it's called, like DSM books, they now have a new phobia called nomophobia, and it stands for no mobile phone phobia, which is so stupid. Like that, it's almost like a joke, but they said that 20% of people actually will sweat and freak out if they don't have their phone suddenly. Like, I would be really freaking upset because, for one thing, Ian calls me on this number. Like, I'd have to, it would be annoying. It would be like, oh, I have to get somebody who has Ian calling him. Okay, I don't need to go through the whole thing. It would be annoying, but I just don't see myself reacting as if, like I said, my grandma has a serious spider phobia. I don't think I would react like that to not having my phone. Do you?
As far as the term phobia goes, I often feel that it is over used. However, it is a long, tried and true path worn where the older generation looks at the things that are different about the younger generation and gets upset. So I would first warn against that. However, I am deeply concerned with young Master Edge's behavior surrounding screens. My son, it seems like I just get finished talking to him and poof, he's gone, someplace hiding around the corner, looking at a screen. And it's not that that's a bad thing. I certainly look at my phone throughout the day, but it feels different when it's your kid and what they're consuming is a bunch of crap. So, I know what they're saying.
I've been talking about this a lot. I've, been actually talking with parents of teenagers, boys, actually. It doesn't really seem to be a thing that affects girls. Teenage girls just die. I mean, I haven't had any real discussion with any of my friends that have teenage girls that are experiencing this issue. But the teenage boys, like, the only satisfaction they're getting is, from this internet device interaction, whether the thing's online or offline. And, and I say to people, what happens if just the internet doesn't work for some reason, at home? Let's just shut off unplug your Wi-Fi router, cut the cord to it. So you can't, take the thing and destroy it maybe. So it's going to take you 3 or 4 days to come up with another one.
My friend actually did that. My friend that I told you I hang out with her and her baby, she has a 7-year-old daughter too, and she just threw the tablet on the ground one day because she was just like, maybe that's not the nicest way to do it, but she was just like, the girl was being so bad, and she was like, it was just like she was a lot better after that. Yeah,
so the girls do recover better from a lot of these things, drugs, all kinds of stuff, from what I'm observing. But Mark, maybe like the internet just shouldn't work in the house for, 36 hours for some reason, and see what happens.
Well, he might know how to fix it.
Yeah, well, I think that it takes longer than that. I think that if you're going to do that kind of internet fast thing, it needs to be a 30-day fast to really, because 36 hours is only going to make a kid mad, which is fine. It's just that, I am okay. Believe me, I'm okay with making kids mad. But the real issue is that I don't think you'll learn anything from 36 hours. I think he's really got to just be bored for a period of time and then find other things to do.
That's another big thing too, is like, so I had a discussion with I'm trying to think, one of the homeschool moms that we interact with. I don't remember which one it was, but it's actually, I've had this discussion with a few people actually, and the discussion is like these kids being constantly entertained at like a toddler age because they have the device in front of them sort of pretty much most of their waking hours. And what one of the moms had brought up is that boredom is good because creation comes out of boredom. So when you let your kid alone to, just be in his room by himself and they start, playing with their toys. So like for Christmas, my kids like are really into farm animals. So like Cypress got this like semi truck, cattle hauler thing, like a bull hauler, and it came with a bunch of cows. And like she's like, Daddy, this is the mama cow, and this is the baby cow, and this is the daddy cow. And I'm like, oh, how do you know that one's the daddy cow? She goes, look, it's got nuts. It's a bull.
Jeez.
And I'm like, how do you know this one's the mama cow? Look at its udders. See its udders? That's milk for the baby cow. Like she's 3 years old and she understands this stuff. But like my kids love cows, and I also have a friend who's got a dairy farm. So I've taken my kids to the dairy farm. Cypress has actually milked a cow, I don't know, half a dozen times now.
Wow, that's that's pretty impressive for a 3-year-old.
Yeah, well, I mean, my buddy who owns the farm,
She was 3, yeah.
her she'll be 4 in February. But my buddy who owns the farm, she's got she was milking the cows on her own at 6 years old, like without, her dad being there. She's my age, she's in her 40s, and she has, like her kids are like 12 and 13, but she's got some nieces and nephews that are toddlers, and they're in the dairy parlor every day, every evening, milking these cows. So it's just like they do it and they love it. But anyways,
you know what it makes me think, though, what you're saying about your daughter's toys and stuff instead of being on a tablet? I have been thinking a lot recently that I think that imagination is something that is kind of a skill you need to develop. Like when Ian and I are doing a meditation and it's like, imagine a door in front of you. Ian can't do that. And that is weird to me. But I also think that I could even get even better at it. I think that I'm pretty good at visualizing, but I could get even better at it. And I think that imagination is more important than just like, entertaining yourself, but you learn about and how to do it as a kid by entertaining yourself. So I don't know. I just think it's important, and tablets could be like stealing that ability from kids.
Oh yeah, and it's very diminishing because the internet devices I've noticed are very diminishing to the young kids, because I see these like 6 and 7 year old kids that, for example, they're TikTok kids, they're device kids, and even younger ones, 3-year-olds, and they have no interest in anything but that device. That device is the only thing they want.
My little brother, he barely eats. Like he doesn't, like, it sounds so much worse than it is, just because he's like me, he's like super tiny. But and I did the same thing when I was a kid. I just only liked to eat 2 things. But he just like, I feel like nothing makes him happy except like maybe some of his friends and Mario games, and it's really bad.
So with the imagination with kids, so for example, my son, one thing that he says daily to me, just whenever, hey Dad, play with me, I want to play farm, can we play farm together? And so I'll go in there and we'll load up the little fake bales of hay on the tractor and drive them around. And,
but that's not playing farm. Aren't you really doing farm with him?
We do it for real life too, but this is like it's 7 o'clock at night, or
so he works and then wants to play farm.
Yes. And well, it ain't work to him. It's just, this is all fun. So anyways, but like then I'm like, all right, buddy, I got to go do some work. I got to go do some things, and and I'll walk away, and he'll be in there for a half an hour, just all right, here's hay for the cows, and then he goes, I'm loading them up in a trailer, and both of my kids do this. They load up the cows in a trailer, and then they're like, they got these little bales of hay in their toy set, and they put the hay in a trailer, so the cows got some bedding and some feed, because that's what I do, when we load them up in a trailer. And then he's like, okay, now we're driving to the slaughterhouse, and so and and the moose. And so but they and then the other thing that my kids do a lot too is we read them lots of books. So,
and that's really good.
Yeah.
I find it so sad when there are people that just don't like to read, and it's because, well, they were in public school their whole life and their parents never made them read anything like mine did. That's just so sad.
I actually never liked to read until my daughter was born.
Wow.
The first book I read, Cypress, was Adam Kokesh's book, Freedom.
Nice.
And I read it to her like 6 or 7 times, and then I got a Tuttle Twins book from a friend, the whole Tuttle Toddlers. So we started reading a Tuttle Toddlers series, which is really great. All those Tuttle Twin books that I have, read to my kids.
Libertarian kids books.
Yeah, they're awesome. In fact, I've been meaning to do an affiliate link with Tuttle Twins, but yeah, it's It's just really good stories, good morals. They're fun for the kids. But my daughter and my son, almost every day they sit in. We got this love seat like recliner couch thing that's against the south end of our building, and there's a sliding glass door there, so the sun comes in. And often throughout the day, they are both just sitting there in the seats, and they got books open, and they are just narrating the books to themselves, both of them.
Not being actually able to read it, but just like they remember and they see the pictures. That's nice.
I'm pretty sure they're memorizing the words, although Cypress is definitely reading some words.
Oh, wow.
Like this. This shirt I'm reading, the shirt I'm wearing, it says, above the grid.
Oh, above the grid. I thought it said love the grid.
Above the grid is, it's pirateswithoutborders.com is one of Ernie Hancock's websites. That's kind of what, this shirt is.
And Ernie Hancock's a show host that is on the Free Talk Live Network on Mondays, same time as this show. But
she definitely has been recognizing words, at least, that are in like a totally different context. So she recognizes the word, her name, like she sees her name written anywhere, and that says Cypress.
Yeah, that was the first thing I learned to write.
Yeah,
too.
and she recognizes
my name,
her little brother's name. She recognizes, a few other names. The word cow, she recognizes that.
Well, this is a call-in talk show, so I'm going to go to the phones. We have Ricky from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Ricky, what's on your mind?
Thank you there, Miss Bonnie. Brother Jay, Brother Mark, good to meet your acquaintance again.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I figure I might as well do something a little on topic for a change. And I will say, as I am about to talk about this, I am wearing my battle flag, my very special battle flag, I might add. Now, the funny thing here is...
Mark doesn't know what you're talking about. What is that, Ricky?
Oh, well, Brother Mark, I am running for office again in 2025. And I have I have a campaign manager. His name's Ricky, too, spelled Rickey, no doubt. And I'm wearing wrapped around me a real battle flag, the one with the grommets on the top, a square 3x3 with a border, professionally made and hand sewn.
It's the flag of the South. What the heck is that called? I can't remember it right now.
Battle flag in North Virginia. This is a real deal. This is a $256 flag.
So just for me to explain it to everybody listening, it's the Southern Cross, but instead of being rectangular, it's square, and it has a white border. So yeah, yes, Ricky likes to mention that.
And it also has around the Southern Cross, it has the borders. All of that is hand sewn with the blue. Inside, it had to be sewn in. That's why it's so damn expensive. But the reason why I'm pointing that out is, I'm going to first say, now, Nikki Haley, she is a waffler on the scale of Herbert Walker Bush wafflers. And but I will tell you, here's how this goes. Now, she had a town hall, and she did say, she got criticized because she didn't say that slavery started the Civil War. Well, let me inform the people out there. Slavery was not what started the Civil War.
And that's a really interesting conversation, Ricky, so I don't mind getting into it if you will hold 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. Hey Mark, we figured out how to talk to you on the breaks if you have anything you want to say on the breaks.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless crime spree.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The United Nations says around 150,000 Palestinians are being forced to flee areas around central Gaza as Israeli forces advance on refugee camps there. The conflict has now stretched on for almost 3 months. The Israeli invasion of the Gaza Strip was triggered by the October 7th attack on Israeli territory by the Palestinian militant group Hamas, which controls Gaza, in which more than 1,200 Israelis were killed, mostly civilians, and more than 200 were taken hostage. FSN's Trent Murray has the latest from Tel Aviv.
We know that reinforcements are being deployed to the south of Gaza around Khan Yunis, and that is a really critical city because it is being used right now as an evacuation hub for people who have already fled the fighting in the north and central parts of Gaza. We know a number of even Israel's closest partners like the United States and Germany are beginning to ask questions about just when this phase of the war will end and transition to something that is a little bit more targeted. I think not helping that pressure from an Israeli perspective is news that has come through today from the IDF, where they have effectively admitted to making a mistake leading to the death of dozens of civilians. The IDF says on Sunday it launched an airstrike in central Gaza. It said that it used the wrong type of munition, which caused extensive collateral damage. It went on to say that it regrets harm to those uninvolved in the conflict and is working to learn lessons from the incident.
The UN has also warned that the human rights situation in the occupied West Bank is rapidly deteriorating. In a new report, the UN states that 300 Palestinians, including 77 children, have been killed there since October 7th. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
The UN's High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, says Israel's use of military tactics in the West Bank is extremely troubling. The UN says that Israel has imposed severe restrictions on movement and arrested more than 4,700 Palestinians since October 7th. The war body is also calling on Israel to take effective steps to end settler violence against Palestinian communities. An Israeli official has described the UN report as quite ridiculous and belittles the major security threats Israelis are facing.
The U.S. and Mexico are hailing what both countries call important and productive talks aimed at stemming the flow of migrants to the U.S. America's top diplomat Antony Blinken visited Mexico on Wednesday to meet President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador at a time when border crossings into the U.S. are hitting record numbers, with often as many as 10,000 migrants reaching the southern border per day as thousands more trek through Mexico. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FS.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. And 603-283-6160 is the phone number for you to call to get in on the conversation with us. Looks like we have a couple callers on the line, but I wanted to tell you that this hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash, Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1% or cent per transaction, and its features ensure Dash is undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible, and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their Chainlocks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. And big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn more about Dash. That's dash.org. In the studio...
Situation.
Oh.
Whoops, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep, you didn't hear me? before?
I did. I was
Oh.
just going to tell you about a situation that a friend who runs a business had with doing Bitcoin sales.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
He was doing these Bitcoin sales, and it wasn't big transactions. He was sending all of the transactions to the same wallet, and it got to be pretty sizable. Bitcoin has had a recent run up. I think it's at $43,000, $44,000, somewhere in that range right now. And so he decided to do a little trading in and, maybe get some other cryptos, maybe get some US dollars, whatever. He was deciding to move it. His transaction fee. Now, I think you guys understand how transaction fees, but because there was a bunch of fees work with Bitcoin, but because there were a bunch of smaller transactions going into this one wallet, and then he moved it all at once, his transaction fee was almost $800.
Wait, why does that affect it? I didn't know that would affect something.
It affects it dramatically.
Wow.
So if you once you move it, then you can move it again, and for a single transaction fee as opposed to a multiple transaction fee.
Wow.
But either way, it's a big deal.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. I wanted to say that in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie,
Jay Noon,
and Mark Edge.
And we have Ricky on the line. Ricky had brought up the idea that I guess Nikki Haley got asked a question during, a debate or something. And she said, well, she didn't comment on whether or not the Civil War was started over slavery. And it's something that, my mom's from Alabama, and she says that is not the case. It did not start because of slavery. But honestly, I don't really know one way or the other why it started. But one thing I know is that Abraham Lincoln was a terrible racist, and he did not just I'm set out to free the slaves. Like, he even mentioned that if the slaves ever got free, he was gonna make them all move to the Bahamas because he didn't want them to suddenly be competing with white people for jobs and stuff. What do you think about that, Ricky?
Well, yeah, basically you hit the nail right on the head. Abraham Lincoln was, and the word racist in itself is a misnomer. You know what's funny? Because I believe the only race is the human race. And you know what's funny? Even the dictionary racist, because it says that a race believes that their race is superior to another. So by default, it has to be racist. But nonetheless, that being said, the reality is he was a tyrannical son of a bitch. But here's what Nikki Haley actually said, and then I'll make a comment on the other party involved. Now, she did say, well, her answer was that it was deciding, what kind of government we actually should be and blah, blah, blah. And that's absolutely correct. Now, she didn't comment on slavery and say that was the reason. Now, the reality is she's telling the truth. Now, I'm going to say right now, I really have serious dislike for Nikki Haley because when she was running for governor of South Carolina, now she embraced that Southern Cross. Now, my ancestors are from the rural parts of South Carolina, and here they were split. My family go back to 1650. Now, she was also the one, I might add, that embraced it with the good old boys and girls, but she was also one that took it off the State House down South Carolina. But then you got Uncle Joe. Now, Uncle Joe, I tell you, I've been there for you so far, but you lost Ricky from the Commonwealth. He's like, yeah, it was about slavery, no doubt. Uncle Joe, you just disgraced
Joe
yourself
Biden?
to Ricky from the Commonwealth.
Well,
Joe Biden might not
Ricky,
know.
yeah, that's what Joe Biden said on Twitter, or at least whoever runs Joe Biden's account on Twitter.
Yeah.
So I think that everyone would agree that the War of Northern Aggression was a complicated war. But to say that it wasn't about slavery is a rather terse answer for, places that wanted states' rights for slavery.
Started about slavery. Joe said it started about slavery. And that was the question. What started the Civil War?
But I would think what started the Civil War was that the South wanted to secede and Abraham Lincoln just couldn't have that. But that doesn't mean that slavery wasn't involved in the whole idea. Like, maybe.
Right, but that was the problem. See, she answered the question correctly. Then you get Uncle Joe, who disappointed the hell out of me. He's like, yeah, it started over slavery, no doubt. No, Joe, you're lying to the people. You disappointed You're disgracing yourself. You know, I have to admit I'm of the same party of yours, but I'm the Confederate Democrat. You know what? You disappoint the hell out of me.
Well, what I really feel the Civil War was actually about was the Rothschild banking family really wanted to destroy the United States. They wanted to put them in debt so they could rule and control and enslave the population. And if you you look into Adams, John Adams, you know, he says on his tombstone, "I killed the bank, and I will root you out like a den of vipers." And
Adams, I think, is that was Jackson.
Oh, sorry, yes, Andrew Jackson. Yeah, thank you. Anyways, but you know, there was this these writings of Ishmael Mayer Rothschild, who was like, you know, very intent on bringing down the states, essentially, you know, the United States of America. And if we look, you know, a lot through history, you'll see that, you know, it was the English bankers who financed both sides of this war. It was the English bankers who did not care who won or lost a war, because they were going to essentially be owed the debt from the war. And the war was purposely, you know, started by the English banking cartel to put the country into, you know, what it has become today. So before the Reconstruction Acts of 1867, basically the country was ran from, you know, grassroots up, from neighborhoods on up. It was, you know, people in homes and neighborhoods, you know, controlled the local government and also controlled the county government and also controlled the
federal
state
government wasn't so huge.
And they also controlled the state government. Well, with the Reconstruction Acts of 1867, and a guy who really explains this very, very well is a fellow named John Ainsworth. And I used to attend some of these lectures that he would do when he would come up to like New England. He would do them in Rhode Island quite a bit at a country club. And he talks about how the government now, as we run it, is basically run from the federal government down, and you know, it flipped, and that started with the Reconstruction Acts of 1867. Another thing we got to understand with the Civil War is that the Constitution has literally been, you know, put in a, you know, off to the side, is not in effect. There is, if anybody wants to internet search, congressional, it's 93rd Congress. The guy's name was McFadden, the senator, and this was 1973, where that particular, you know, congressional session was opened up with this McFadden talking about how the Constitution has not been in effect since March 31st, 1861, I believe, which was Executive Order number 1. And now I know at like Clinton, we were at like Executive Order, you know, 2000 and something. I don't even know what Executive Order we're at right now. But basically, the country has been being run by declarations of war, emergency powers declarations ever since the Civil War. And
I always wonder about these claims, Jay, and it's not to say that there were dramatic changes post-Civil War. There absolutely were. But I mean, I feel like these guys that are sort of claiming, you know, it's the 14th Amendment and all that stuff, they're trying to construct out of in their own mind a legal justification for what occurred, when in fact it was just a DC power grab. Like, oh, well, you know, we see what happens when we let the states be their own countries. Because back then, essentially everything that wasn't directly mentioned in the Constitution was considered unconstitutional in a state power. Now it seems like everything is a federal government power, and the states have almost none.
Yeah, I mean, that's clearly what we got going on. Go ahead, Ricky.
Well, I did want to add a little something. Now, it's funny you're talking about the Civil War. Now, I did mention about me running again in 2025, and I did want to say I promised the captain.
Oh, but before you go on, Ricky, you're not winning anything in Pennsylvania wearing a rebel flag on you. Just saying.
You're wrong, brother Mark. You've been out of touch too long. Now, let me tell you something. Now, I already have support way better than I had in 2017. Now, let me tell you something. Now, that being said, I have support like you wouldn't believe. But I did promise the captain that me and my campaign manager will come to New Hampshire, because I want more than just District 189. And I did, and my main campaign promise is that I will blow away the U.S. Constitution in one term.
But that's the thing. Think of all the Republicans that will freak out about that. Actually,
what is District 189?
Wait a minute. That you can look it up. It got
I'm looking it up.
Gerrymandering.
The St. Louis School District.
No, it represents seat for representative legislative district. Because I want to blow away the U.S. Constitution, Mark. Commonwealth ain't playing, and that's what they're counting on me to do, and I will do it in one term. That's my campaign promise. And
Most people love the Constitution.
Well, here's the thing. That's the better part. You see, people here really do not love it. That's where, you're up in New Hampshire, but I will tell you this.
No, I've lived all over the country, and everybody loves the freaking Constitution. And
Yeah, but not in Pennsylvania. They don't.
I haven't lived in Pennsylvania, but I just don't believe you.
Well, here's the thing. Everybody's welcome from all over PA to come to my rallies in 2025. And, of course, you in New Hampshire can come down at my rallies. They're going to be live rock and roll. And you see, at my rallies, it ain't going to be like other people's rallies, like Mr. Trump. There's two things he talks about a lot. He talks about cops, and he talks about guns. You don't see any of them at his rallies. There's going to be lots of them at my rallies. And plus, on top of that,
I think with that accent, Ricky, you need to come out in like a foghorn leghorn outfit. At my rallies, boy.
Brother Mark, I hear you, but at my rallies, if you want to smoke something at my rallies, you're more than welcome to. Nobody's going to bother you. If you want to dress, you can dress any way you want. If you want to undress, you can undress if you like, as long as you're not hurting anybody. And nobody's going to be bothered by it. And at my rallies, it's going to be very different. And everybody that come to my rallies gets a free Confederate flag, not like this one, but the 3x5 Navy one. And I'm going to tell you something else. You see, we will become the Confederate Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And I did say this already. We're going to need it when the vessel, blows it away in the middle of the night. I will donate this to put upon the PA House of Representatives.
Well, I can't really see why we would need a Confederate anything today. Like, especially just with the whole, PR around it. Even if you could prove to me that there was actually no bad people there, it doesn't matter, because everybody looking at it is going to be like, oh, that's bad people stuff. Like, I just don't see how you're going to win. And
it's like flying a swastika.
Yeah.
It just, whether you like it or not.
Even though like the swastika did exist all over the world before Nazis, front or forwards, clockwise and counterclockwise, and it meant good things. It was mostly a positive sign. It doesn't matter now. Like, you'll see it in Nepal all the time, I think it is, today. But if you had that in the United States and you just tried to tell somebody it's this beautiful Hindu symbol that talks about blah, 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 well, no one's going to care. I just don't think anyone's going to care. And also just he started sounding kind of like he's been like listening to old Nobody episodes and copying his, talking about his running. But even then, he has less of a following than Nobody, and Nobody didn't win. Our friend named Nobody. But moving on, we have Dave Ridley on the line. Dave Ridley, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I have some good news.
Good.
Or to be good news to some people. The Ridley Report is back on YouTube.
Oh, good.
What made you decide that?
I was just uploading to BitChute and Odyssey, but every 6 months or so, I would check my YouTube account, and if I didn't have any new strikes, I figured I could go ahead and start uploading again. What was happening was they were going back and giving strikes to my old videos. Like, for instance, they took down one it was about Afghanistan war, and I used, pictures of a U.S. atrocity. It wasn't particularly gruesome, but they took the video down because the video is accurate, right? So, and every time they do that, they give you a strike, as I understand it. And if you get 3 strikes, they take down the whole channel. So my strategy starting in 2021 was just to stop uploading and put my head down for a while, and I would check back in every once in a while, see if they were still striking. Finally, I checked into my video, my channel about a week ago. No new strikes. So I thought, well, okay, finally the coast is clear. I can start uploading here again. I did do that, and the number of hits is a lot lower than it used to be.
That's good.
But
sorry. Wrong kind of hits. I thought you meant the YouTube trying to take you down type hits are a lot less than it used to be.
Right, yeah, the number of views is a lot less, but it's still a big improvement over where I was a month ago. So that's one thing that's gotten a little bit better.
But are your videos doing a lot better on YouTube than they were on Odyssey and BitChute?
Yes.
Excellent. That's great. That's great to hear. I'll start trying to share those links.
Are you
too.
monetized in any way? Does YouTube send you a check?
No, and I would have long since been demonetized if I had ever been monetized. But I started going through the process, and Google wanted me to fill out all this paperwork and make promises and stuff like that I would do this and that. So I just didn't feel like I should do that. So my money has always come directly from people who I contact by email and ask them if they want to buy an ad, basically.
Okay. Well, I'd love to see you reporting on stuff in New Hampshire, and I must say I do watch a lot of YouTube. I would like to watch Odyssey, but it doesn't show up on my TV somehow.
Well, I listen to Odyssey basically every day because at least it can play in the background, unlike YouTube. I don't have YouTube Red or whatever, but I listened to a Ridley report the other day. He asked some councilman in Keene what he had to say about the raid on my house, and the guy was just like, I didn't have anything to do with that. It was federal. And then he's like, well, what about, do you know how much money it cost? And he was like, I could look, but no. And he was just like really dodging the questions. But that was nice, Dave.
Well, I mean, the local police were there.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I had for the city council. It was like, well, so what was the budget? Like, how much did it cost Keene Police, the police department, when they went out and supported the feds on that raid? Because they were pretty heavily involved. And
I'm sure that they would have done it for free. I know they didn't, but they would have. They're that much the fans of Ian.
Well, so I guess I tried to interview 3, maybe 4 city councilors, and they all really gave me the same answer. Basically, they had no position regarding the raid. Like, it happened right down the street from them, and they had no opinion on it whatsoever.
Yeah, yeah, but it's the only time they ever deployed their Bearcats, and they just don't care. I don't believe that.
Were both those Bearcats there? I thought it was one was Concord.
There was
Bearcat.
both. No, yeah. Well, okay, maybe they weren't both belonging to Keene. I thought that they had 2, but 2 Bearcats were at my house. I thought that was the question you're asking.
Yes, there were.
One of them said he was not familiar with the raid.
Yeah,
I just don't know what happened.
Good old-fashioned politician, plausible deniability. This idea of, I don't know, this, so-called, ignorance to the situation.
Because they can point to someone else like, well, they were in charge. And then that person's like, nope, they were in charge. And they just do that in a circle.
And the way I look at the federal government, the United States Corporation, the FBI, whoever, it is literally like an occupying enemy army here on this soil we call New Hampshire. And, then they're occupying, by way of, the fact that the state of New Hampshire is this incorporation that was incorporated under the, United States Corporation, and now, has a whole bunch of corporate loyalist, subjects, which are, people that claim to be United States citizens on these documents that they fill out, government permission slips. And if you look all through history, when this melts down, like these people need to understand that if you just look through history, what happened to the local traders, once the local traders didn't have, the protection of the invading, force, like when the invading force either like shriveled up and died or couldn't operate anymore, it's just, there's just these guys are creating bad karma for themselves. And the fact that, and the sad thing is a lot of them are just such cult members and drones. They don't have any ability of critical thought, because they've probably spent all of their years being, educated in a public school system and then going to college. And then all of a sudden they're 26 years old, their brain's all done developing, and they've never had a thought of their own. They've never engaged in any critical thinking because, they didn't have to really go to work to pay any bill or anything.
And when they did, it was just like number pushing out type things. And yeah. I totally believe that about all people who work for the government. Thank you for the call, Dave Ridley. Did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
Well, with regard to collaborators, it's our job to do what the Estonians did in 1991 when they kicked the Soviet Union completely out, or even more like 1989. They made a point of treating all the Russians on their territory well, even though many of them were pro-Moscow, right? And that is why Estonia is done as well as it has. And it's our job to make sure that if the United States ever leaves New Hampshire, we behave like the Estonians did.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you, Dave, for the call. And anyone who wants to find more find out his videos, you can go to ridleyreport.com or go to YouTube and type in Ridley Report Now or Odyssey or BitChute. Thank you, Dave.
I just hope all these traders are shunned and they're not able to get any food. They're not able to they'll have to actually
leave.
Well, they'll just have to actually
leave.
work for it. Yeah, please leave. I'll help you leave.
I do think of Estonia as somehow not as terrible, badly off as the other ones. I don't know why, just because there's a pop singer I like from there. But I don't know the actual truth.
Who's the pop singer?
Her name is Curly. That's how we would say it, but it's really Kelly.
Okay.
And it's awesome. I love her. Anyways, we were talking at the very beginning of the show about a different subject, but that's how Free Talk Live works. We let you guys call in and bring up whatever's on your mind. But at the very beginning of the show, if you two remember, we had an article from Wired.com, and it says, inside Mark Zuckerberg's top secret Hawaii compound. And Mark Zuckerberg is the CEO of Meta, which is the new name for Facebook, because I guess these billionaires have to keep changing up social media names, and that's a little weird thing. It just occurred to me that that's happening often now, and that's a little weird. But getting to it, it says, off the 2-lane highway that winds along the northeast side of the Hawaiian island of Kauai, on a quiet stretch of ranch land between the tourist hubs of Kapa and Hanalei, an enormous secret construction project is underway.
Secret.
Yep. And not anymore, I guess. A 6-foot wall blocks the view from a nearby road fronting the project, where cars slow to try to catch a glimpse of what is behind it. Security guards stand watch at an entrance gate and patrol the surrounding beaches on ATVs. Wow. Pickup trucks roll in and out, hauling building material and transporting hundreds of workers. It kind of makes me wonder why, if you're going to choose a place to survive the apocalypse, I don't think I'd choose Hawaii because, well, if they don't have their grids and everything, think of all the dangers that are there, like typhoons. I don't know if that's a thing there.
Well, there's a lot of free chickens running around Kauai.
And it's a small population. Someone like Zuckerberg and his team of elitists, whoever, mercenaries that he hires, that will remain loyal to him, could just wipe them out. I mean, sounds like a lot of them got wiped out in that fire event already.
Yeah.
He's probably also thinking that the chances that he needs the bunker are low, so he gets to live in paradise while he waits for whatever the bad thing is.
I just feel like a place like that could easily become not paradise. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up. Were you saying you need to say something?
Yes.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction, and its features ensure Dash is undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible, and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their Chainlocks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at Dash.org. Big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit Dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The United Nations says around 150,000 Palestinians are being forced to flee areas around central Gaza as Israeli forces advance on refugee camps there. The conflict has now stretched on for almost 3 months. The Israeli invasion of the Gaza Strip was triggered by the October 7th attack on Israeli territory by the Palestinian militant group Hamas, which controls Gaza, in which more than 1,200 Israelis were killed, mostly civilians, and more than 200 were taken hostage. FSN's Trent Murray has the latest from Tel Aviv.
We know that reinforcements are being deployed to the south of Gaza around Khan Yunis, and that is a really critical city because it is being used right now as an evacuation hub for people who have already fled the fighting in the north and central parts of Gaza. We know a number of even Israel's closest partners like the United States and Germany are beginning to ask questions about just when this phase of the war will end and transition to something that is a little bit more targeted. I think not helping that pressure from an Israeli perspective is news that has come through today from the IDF, where they have effectively admitted to making a mistake leading to the death of dozens of civilians. The IDF says on Sunday it launched an airstrike in central Gaza. It said that it used the wrong type of munition, which caused extensive collateral damage. It went on to say that it regrets harm to those uninvolved in the conflict and is working to learn lessons from the incident.
The UN has also warned that the human rights situation in the occupied West Bank is rapidly deteriorating. In a new report, the UN states that 300 Palestinians, including 77 children, have been killed there since October 7th. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
The UN's High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, says Israel's use of military tactics in the West Bank is extremely troubling. The UN says that Israel has imposed severe restrictions on movement and arrested more than 4,700 Palestinians since October 7th. The war body is also calling on Israel to take effective steps to end settler violence against Palestinian communities. An Israeli official has described the UN report as quite ridiculous and belittles the major security threats Israelis are facing.
The U.S. and Mexico are hailing what both countries call important and productive talks aimed at stemming the flow of migrants to the U.S. America's top diplomat, Antony Blinken, visited Mexico on Wednesday to meet President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador at a time when border crossings into the U.S. are hitting record numbers, with often as many as 10,000 migrants reaching the southern border per day as thousands more trek through Mexico. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Donald Trump has launched a fresh broadside at Jack Smith, the U.S. Department of Justice special prosecutor who indicted the former president on charges of attempting to subvert the outcome of the 2020 election. Mr. Smith is eager for the case to go to trial on schedule on March the 4th. But that is the eve of Super Tuesday, the day on which the race for the Republican Party's presidential nomination goes national. Trump's legal team is claiming the presidency conveys immunity on their client. Last week, the Supreme Court refused the prosecutor's request to fast-track a decision on the matter. Mick Mulvaney, Trump's former White House chief of staff, explains.
What Trump has done is said, look, I'm immune from this lawsuit because I was president. And there's been a dispute in the lower court right now as to whether or not the federal government can even bring this lawsuit against him for the January 6th riots. The prosecutor wanted to take that immediately to the Supreme Court in order to fast-track the decision. The Supreme Court said, no, we're going to let this appeal work its way through the courts normally, which will slow it down a little bit, which will mean that there's a chance now that trial will not begin before Super Tuesday and may take several months after that.
Of course, Trump is trying to kick the legal football into the long grass and on Wednesday called his prosecutor deranged, accusing Mr. Smith of being engaged in a desperate rush to get the case to trial. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The UN says around 150,000 Palestinians are being forced to flee regions of central Gaza as Israeli forces advance on refugee camps there. The UN is also warning that the human rights situation in the occupied West Bank is rapidly deteriorating, and the U.S. and Mexico are hailing what both countries call important and productive talks aimed at stemming the flow of migrants to the U.S. That is the latest feature story news.
The Dick Cheney Vice Presidential Library opens in a pitch-dark, sulfurous underground cave, and a seedless watermelon is coming to grips with the fact it'll never be able to have kids. This is the Onion Week in Review. Following a litany of tragedies occurring over the past year, a report this week from scientists at Princeton University confirmed that 90% of the Earth's atmosphere is now made up of thoughts and prayers. Researchers confirmed that with the rise of tragic events occurring all across the world each and every day, the Earth's atmosphere is 7% nitrogen, 3% oxygen, and 90% emotional pleas begging for everything to be okay. In other news, a new study finds nothing that will actually convince you to change your lifestyle, so just forget it. UMass Dartmouth is beginning to regret offering a course in applied domestic terrorism, and a sparrow thinks it might have caught the bird flu after puking seeds all morning. Stay tuned after the video for a brief tear in the fabric of space-time, offering a glimpse at next week's Onion Review. And keep checking theonion.com for more.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. And 603-283-6160 is the phone number for you to call to bring up whatever's on your mind, comment on whatever we're talking about, or change the subject. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. It's Free Talk Live. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Jay.
And Mark.
And Mark is with us remotely. Are you willing to say where you are, Mark?
I'm in Florida.
Mark is in Florida. Jay and I are in a studio in New Hampshire, but we're all doing the show together. It works out that way with Ian Magic, who's my husband that tells me how to make it work. So I'd like to thank Andrew Valish, who's a silver level amplifier. Thank you to Andrew Valish for being a silver level amplifier. What does that mean? It means that he went to amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for advertise, market, promote, and support. And that's what you're doing whenever you sign up on that site and help support the show. So thank you so much to Andrew. We really appreciate it at Free Talk Live.
Bonnie, speaking of Ian, I'd like to hear any news that might be going on. I know that his, what are we going to call that, hearing was backed up, but I don't know much else.
Well, his hearing was backed up because the judge had, or it was like postponed because the judge had COVID, apparently. And
sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and so the next thing, or the only other thing other than that is just what he's been doing day to day. He basically keeps himself busy in jail. Ian's like the founder of our show and with Mark, and he just went to jail for selling Bitcoin or prison. And if you want to learn more about that, you can go to thecrypto6.com. Basically, he just reads books and is learning Spanish and does yoga and works out and eats. And he is so busy that he acts like he has to schedule with me when he can call me sometimes.
He doesn't have time to chat with his wife. He's busy on the tablet in jail.
Well, he does have lots of stuff he has to get done, and especially replying to letters. Actually, that's a pretty nice thing. Lots of people send him letters, and he wants to make sure that he replies to them. And also, he reads newspapers that one of his friends in there has a subscription to. And then he sends me show prep. But he also texts me. And the other thing about it is he's always like, Bonnie, it's 21 cents a minute to talk to him on the phone. So if I'm like just silent for a while, he's like, Bonnie, do you have anything else we need to talk about? And I'm like, it's just been 5 seconds. And he's like, it's 21 cents per minute. But I think it's a good thing because he's not too bored to where he's like just sitting around doing nothing. He stays in a good mood because of that. But it looks like we have a caller on the line. Anonymous caller, unscreened caller. What's on your mind?
Hello, Bonnie. How are you tonight?
Good. How are you? Is this TJ?
No, this is not TJ. Some people like to call me Bobby from Lakeland, Florida, but I'm not in Lakeland, Florida no more. I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida now, baby. We're moving on up.
Okay. Sounded like a friend for a second, a different person's voice. So what's on your mind, Bobby?
Yeah, Well, I called you before, and I called Ian right before he went to prison. We talked about a relationship advice problem that I had with, 'cause I was 438 pounds. I had duodenal switch weight loss surgery, and this was 7 months ago. I'm down to 225 pounds. So I've lost over 200 pounds. Bonnie, do you remember all this? You don't remember that?
you told me that your girlfriend gave you an STD, or like you thought she might give you an STD. Sorry, but is something about that?
No. Well, yes, it was close, but so I had a girl. I finally was able. I knew a girl that I known for a long time. Okay, and we always kept in contact, but we never did anything. And now it's 15 years later. And I got, and I was down to 300 instead of 430 at the time, and I talked her into coming over. Anyways, well, I didn't know how bad of a nasty thing she's been these past 15 years because I've kept myself pretty clean. I'm not saying I'm bragging, but I was 438 pounds, so it wasn't too hard.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. And she was a big girl. She's probably about 260. She was, or she is. Anyways,
and guys don't care if they're big girls.
Yeah,
some guys.
Yeah. So she came over and everything. And anyways, I did a lot of work, man. I dusted the baseboards. I took a shower. I made sure my teeth were brushed. I made sure the microwave was clean. It took like 3-4 hours, And then
which one took 3 or 4 hours to clean? The microwave couldn't.
No.
Altogether.
It took 3 or 4 hours to clean, just the bathroom. It wasn't trash all over. I just wanted to make sure everything was real nice. You know what I mean? I wanted to make sure everything was nice. So I spent 3 or 4 hours doing that and everything. And then she comes over and whatnot, and I get to dinner and whatnot. Anyways. Now, it's getting, 8, 9 o'clock, or we're going to put the movie on, and she drops the news on me. Well, Bobby, I have herpes. And I'm like, what? Anyways, Bonnie was giving me advice about it, and so that was very nice of her. So I just wanted to let her know, just make sure she knows who I am, because it's Bobby. What I wanted to talk about tonight was how Jay Noon finally got through all that DCF stuff. Man, all the DCF stories and stuff that I've seen with my sister.
He's not done yet. It's actually DCYF in New Hampshire. It's the CPS, the Child Protective Service.
DCF, so
but
we
yeah,
call it whatever we need.
It's not over yet, unfortunately. You want to tell the story?
Well, I know, but we listen to. Can Jay talk?
Yeah. So the DCYF particular situation, where that stands is DCYF couldn't get anywhere with us. So when the chief of police basically went to the family court and was like, hey, there's a gross misrepresentation of the facts. I've met the family. There's no neglect or abuse. There's no need to have, any of this go on. The whole affidavit that I, read out, actually it's not an affidavit. Technically it's a narrative, that I, read out on Free Talk Live on my YouTube channel, J Noon on YouTube. There is, a clip of me reading it. But so what happened is the day that the family court case got vacated out of family court because of essentially the blatant lies that the chief of police caught the social worker in, that same day, that evening, a Concord police officer put out a warrant for my wife's arrest. So it looks like there's going to be a jury trial Well, they're calling it a jury trial, but we're demanding a trial by judgment of peers, as the Constitution says, in a court of common law, a court of record, because a court of record includes the court must be a court under common law. And these courts, like Superior Court, which is not a part of the judicial, wasn't created by the Constitution. It was created by the legislature in 1911 or 1901. Basically says it right on their website, New Hampshire Superior Court. They're not a common law court. We're not sure what they are. There's some kind of statutory or secret jurisdiction. They never want to tell you what jurisdiction they function in. But anyway, so my wife has been charged with child endangerment, which they can't even define the word endangerment. The word endangerment is not even defined in their code. In fact, there's a bill in the
just
New
riding
Hampshire.
around in a car. Sorry, could it fall under the way that they act like endangerment?
Oh yeah, and any of that
applied.
stuff, because riding around in a car is far more dangerous than allowing a child to nap in a parked car.
Yeah.
Now that being, and during March, when there's snowbanks on the ground,
with the AC on
and climate control on, but anyways, so this is essentially a retaliation effort on the part of New Hampshire DCYF. And so all the judicial officers, the judges, the prosecutors, are all 100% compromised because under Social Security Administration, what's called Title IV, and specifically Title 4D, provides a 66% incentive to the judicial pension fund in every single state based on the performances of family court to collect child support. And
so they have an incentive.
Yep. So they definitely have an incentive to protect the family court scam. And family court is a court of, it's not a court of common law. It's not a court of record. It's just another statutory creation. There is nowhere in the Constitution where the legislature is authorized to create courts where they can just willy-nilly take children from people, and also put their names on lists and all this stuff. So we did an actual notice. So there's a notice about this. If you go to my website, jaynoone.com, that's JAYNOONE.com. And on the top, it says a notice to investigate DCYF. You click on that brings you to a jot form, which actually we're going to update that to a new notice that we're going to put out in a couple of days to get people to sign. But you can just read that notice up there, and it basically kind of explains that DCYF family courts don't have any of this authority to do what they do. Well, the problem is all the judges are compromised, and all the state employees in general, because if you read, in fact, this is another document that I'm going to link on my website very soon. There's an actual New Hampshire, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, program that sort of explains how the social workers are trained. And there's a class that they can take at Granite State University or Granite State College. It's called Maximizing Revenue for DCYF. Actually, it's just they changed the name of it. Yes. So what they do is they actually train the social workers on how to maximize revenue for DCYF through this, what's called Title IV, Social Security Administration Title IV, and it lists Section A, C, E, and whatnot in this particular pamphlet. And if anybody would like to sign up and take this course at Granite State College, there would be. I kind of want to take it. I don't know.
Just to learn what they're telling people.
Just to learn what they're telling. But I'd really love to see if someone would volunteer. That's going to be a lot better. I'm going to have a hard time paying attention to it.
Oh,
but anyways, so
who should is Karlin Boroshenko. She goes undercover really well. Goes to socialist conventions, and she's all about showing people what they're doing in public schools that they're not telling the parents. So she might be interested. Maybe you could reach out to her.
Yeah, that sounds like a real good idea. We should write that down so I remember to do that.
Okay.
Anyways, the state, the employees of the state of New Hampshire, one of the things that they're very, very concerned about is their pension funds. And the social workers are essentially trained, and many state employees are essentially under the belief that they need to get this federal money. They need to expand the bureaucracy. There needs to be more people. When they retire, there needs to be 4 people coming in behind them in order to keep their pension fund
Like a
afloat.
pyramid scheme.
It's a massive pyramid scheme, and the amount of money that the Social Security Administration is pumping into states based on the performance of DCYF and family court is absurd. And also in this one particular document, which I should have it prepared for show prep next week. This document I'm talking about, it talks about how there's penalties. So what happened with my case is, DCYF social worker who lied, said that the police said that I was an anti-government free stater that lives on a compound with lookouts, and I was extremely dangerous.
What? There's no lookouts?
Technically there really isn't any lookouts because the cupola.
That's what I always think about. Like, I've only been here foreign twice, I think, but every time you guys mention that, I'm like, I don't know what they would mean by lookouts because it's like enclosed by a forest.
Right.
So it's just the thing they say before they raid with the Bearcats.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's this kind of lying that these people do, and this particular social worker. So Melissa Coombs, and if anybody's had an involved engagement with her, please email me, jay@jaynoon.com. That's JAY@JAYNOONE.com. And we need to get people's affidavits about the bad actions of DCYF. We have a committee coming up to investigate DCYF. I have submitted an affidavit. My wife has submitted an affidavit, and a handful of other people have too. The thing is, I'm really noticing is like people are like just scared so bad. They're like just worried that the retaliation that they're going to get for going against DCYF is going to be severe. And, we have an example here. We have a retaliation effort against my wife. Well, when you don't contract with DCYF. DCYF is essentially a corporation. It is a municipal corporation. It doesn't have any jurisdiction to engage with you at all. You have to give them consent. Now, a lot of people step in jurisdictional traps because they take welfare, for example. They ask the family court to get child support from the ex. They get food stamps. They get heating assistance. They get WIC, whatever these programs that, put their, they do vouchers for schools and things like that. All these things I refer to as jurisdictional traps. So that puts people under the jurisdiction of DCYF and they don't even know it. And then DCYF shows at people's houses. They scare the crap out of people. They show up with cops. They show up like after dark or very early in the morning when people are, and people are terrified. These are actual domestic terrorists. With
one thing you should know
that they do
is that they're also terrified of you if you stand up for yourself at all, because a friend of, I'm not sure if you guys know him, but a friend of mine, he lives in New Ipswich, and DCF was threatening to go after him after an incident when his baby was born and he wouldn't wear a mask at the hospital. And they were saying, okay, we're going to come over at this time. And it was no one showed up but me. I'm 5'2", like 100 pounds. And I just stood next to the dad. The mom and the babies were all inside. And we just stood at the end of the driveway. They drove by once and obviously staring, turning their heads, looking at us, and then called and we're like, we are too uncomfortable to come right now because of what you guys are doing, standing there at the end of the road. And he was like, I'm just waiting for you guys to get here so you can show me your ID. I just need to check your ID. That's all. You can come right on. And not being aggressive, not with a gun or anything. He's also pretty skinny. And they dropped everything against him.
So DCYF
they didn't come that day.
Gets paid to do these assessments. So the assessment that they wanted to do in my case was to, they wanted to inspect my home. They wanted to interview my daughter alone, my 2-year-old daughter alone. And, these people are career child traffickers. They get paid by the federal government a huge, thousands of dollars. The numbers I've heard are between $4,000 and $8,000 to do this assessment. And then percentages of that money, some percentage of that money goes directly, according to Mike Gill. I haven't, got the documents yet, but goes directly to the judge at family court. Some of this money goes to other programs within the state under this Title IV, section whatever stuff. So, but when somebody doesn't, agree with these guys or doesn't contract with DCYF, because they actually have you sign a release and a consent form and things to giving them consent to do this. do these kind of behaviors. But when someone doesn't do that, DCYF and family court get penalized. And when there's a penalty through this Social Security Administration Title IV stuff, they call it a performance penalty, I believe, in their documents. The state of New Hampshire, that corporation gets less money. They get penalized. They don't get the revenue from the federal government. And as we know, all of these state employees, including Governor Sununu, they're nothing more than just whores. They're just about the money. Like all the COVID money stuff, they're a reason that they arrested the Noble 9, for example, and the Noble 8, and the Newfields 8 got arrested, was because they were protesting this whorish attitude of the governor, for example, because they just want this money from the federal government. So now what we have going on here is they engage in retaliation efforts, and that's exactly what's going on, with my wife's case. And so these guys and the judges are all covering it up. There's a massive conflict of interest here because the judges' pension fund benefits quite generously from the performance of DCYF. Now, these guys got really, really upset because I said, no, I don't want someone from DCYF doing this assessment, but the local chief of police can do it, and his lieutenant, who's a woman. And, these guys aren't woke libtards that, just went out of, that came from some college, that is being funded by all of Jeffrey Epstein's friends, like the Clintons, and, go on with the name. And hopefully this client list comes out. Because like literally, my wife has had more courtroom time than everybody combined on Jeffrey Epstein's,
didn't the Concord police get involved because they didn't feel like the Hinsdale police were sufficiently on the side of the DCYF?
No, so the thing happened in Concord, and the cop who showed up at the scene, was the one who filed the.
So are they claiming that what happened in Concord was what's the term they're using?
Child endangerment.
Endangerment.
Yep.
They're claiming that specifically was an endangering thing.
Yes.
Okay.
So, anyways,
so now they have to prove it to a jury that that's the case, right?
Right.
That your child will be better off in the hands of other people because your wife left him in a climate-controlled car for a brief period of time.
Correct. So the thing is what really upsets, even the local police are like, we don't understand these guys. You don't understand this. What really upset DCYF and all of these career child traffickers is when they're not going to get the money from the federal government. And when we're like, hey, the police can do this assessment, and the order says a police officer can do it. I have emails from supervisors and lawyers between the Henniker chief of police and DCYF supervisors and lawyers where they're like, oh, no, there has to be a DCYF social worker there. And the order clearly states a police officer or a social worker can do this assessment. And since the motivation of the social workers is really, really bad, and they really want to steal healthy, good-looking children and adopt them out because it's very, very lucrative for their careers. And these people are literally brainwashed and, and incentivized and influenced. And, they believe, that this is, how things got to work. So thanks for bringing that up and giving me an opportunity to, explain this again here live on the air. And, go to jnoon.com and check out that jot form, box on the top of the page to investigate DCYF. We're going to update that with another notice that we'll be putting out very soon here to try to correct the situation that we have here with corrupt government and maladministration.
Yeah, it's an important thing. And that guy who called in, who's kind of like a DCYF fighting celebrity, what's his name?
I forget his name. Oh, Mike Gill.
Mike Gill.
About? Yep.
He was like, "Oh, Jay, you should just stop because you're never going to win in court." But the thing is, I think it's great that you're standing up. Like, people just don't stand up to these people.
He's literally worried they're going to whack me, or they're going to try to come at me with other things.
603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are
having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The United Nations says around 150,000 Palestinians are being forced to flee areas around central Gaza as Israeli forces advance on refugee camps there. The conflict has now stretched on for almost 3 months. The Israeli invasion of the Gaza Strip was triggered by the October 7th attack on Israeli territory by the Palestinian militant group Hamas, which controls Gaza, in which more than 1,200 Israelis were killed, mostly civilians, and more than 200 were taken hostage. FSN's Trent Murray has the latest from Tel Aviv.
We know that reinforcements are being deployed to the south of Gaza around Khan Yunis, and that is a really critical city because it is being used right now as an evacuation hub for people who have already fled the fighting in the north and central parts of Gaza. We know a number of even Israel's closest partners like the United States and Germany are beginning to ask questions about just when this phase of the war will end and transition to something that is a little bit more targeted. I think not helping that pressure from an Israeli perspective is news that has come through today from the IDF, where they have effectively admitted to making a mistake leading to the death of dozens of civilians. The IDF says on Sunday it launched an airstrike in central Gaza. It said that it used the wrong type of munition, which caused extensive collateral damage. It went on to say that it regrets harm to those uninvolved in the conflict and is working to learn lessons from the incident.
The UN has also warned that the human rights situation in the occupied West Bank is rapidly deteriorating. In a new report, the UN states that 300 Palestinians, including 77 children, have been killed there since October 7th. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
The UN's High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, says Israel's use of military tactics in the West Bank is extremely troubling. The UN says that Israel has imposed severe restrictions on movement and arrested more than 4,700 Palestinians since October 7th. The war body is also calling on Israel to take effective steps to end settler violence against Palestinian communities. An Israeli official has described the UN report as quite ridiculous and belittles the major security threats Israelis are facing.
The U.S. and Mexico are hailing what both countries call important and productive talks aimed at stemming the flow of migrants to the U.S. America's top diplomat, Antony Blinken, visited Mexico on Wednesday to meet President Andrés Manuel López Obrador at a time when border crossings into the U.S. are hitting record numbers, with often as many as 10,000 migrants reaching the southern border per day as thousands more trek through Mexico. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FS.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control, and 603-283-6160 is the phone number for you to call. That's 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever's on your mind, and I want to tell you about ForkFest 2024. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual ForkFest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. ForkFest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Forkfest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Forkfest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. Forkfest.party. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Jay.
And Mark.
And tonight we've been talking about all kinds of different things, but I just wanted to switch the subject up. I've had this article for a little bit in my show prep, and it's from December 9th from the Wall Street Journal, and it says, a moving company touts its young, chiseled workers. The feds say that's age discrimination. And that's so messed up.
What?
The government is so involved with freaking businesses.
Well, the government
in
is
America.
just has this just double standard of, like, the feds are putting effort into this. And, Jeffrey Epstein's clients are, like, still free and roaming after they've been raping children for years. I mean, it just shows that there's a whole bunch of pedophiles in charge of everything at the federal level.
They're not doing stuff that's important or that helps you out, listener, that's for sure. It says Biden-appointed EEOC commissioners are taking closer look at alleged age bias.
What is EEOC?
That I don't know.
Some kind of garbage ESG nonsense?
Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. But it looks like we have a caller on the line. Rob in Vermont. What's on your mind, Rob?
Hey, guys. How's it going this evening?
Good. What's on your mind, Rob?
Right. So, I wanted to plug a couple of names out there. Jay was talking about the experience that he's had with the Department of Child Welfare and the family court. And, if you go onto YouTube, you can find Jay's videos in there, specifically the one where the Department of Child Welfare come, to his house. And, these people, they don't care. It's all about the money for them. They just don't care about, people's rights or any of that kind of stuff. But the other thing I wanted to say was I wanted to plug a couple other names. I read a book called The Respondent. It came out about 2 or 3 years ago, and it's about the same situation of what Jay has. They tried on Jay and myself, where the Department of Child Welfare comes to your home. You're ambushed into, any allegation. The whole element about this is surprise. And if you don't know your rights or don't know how to stand up for yourself, and if you contract with the state, you're done. You're toast. It's like trying to fight a ghost. But if you read this book, The Respondent, and the author's name is Greg Ellis, it'll give you a lot of information on how he fought, the courts, how he fought the child welfare. He had lost his children, but he had got them all back. Nice. And this guy is just campaigning.
Well, it's nice to get your kids back, but it's really awful to have them taken.
Yeah, to have to fight them.
There's no win to this. It's just varying degrees of losing.
Exactly, and that happened out of California. And then there was another gentleman, his name is Dwight Mitchell, and I believe he's from Minnesota. And same thing happened with him. They took the children. He didn't get them back till 18, 19 months later. And, what they didn't realize, the state, was that Dwight Mitchell is an engineer. And the type of engineer work that he does is he's hired by companies to go in and do assessments of how the company runs, the payroll and stuff like that. And they didn't realize how much, knowledge that Mr. Mitchell had and how he was able to get the, his children back, and I think he even sued. But both of these individuals have a lot to offer and should be, followed, definitely.
What's the name of the book again?
All right, the name of the book is called The Respondent, and the author's name is Greg Ellis.
Well,
and
thanks
then
so much,
the other
Rob.
gentleman's yeah, thank you. Have a good evening.
No, if you have more to say, go ahead. Sorry, I thought there was only one for some reason.
Okay, and then, the other gentleman's name is Dwight Mitchell, and he's from Minnesota. And again, both of these individuals have their own YouTube channels, and they should be definitely watched.
Interesting. Jay, if you win the jury one, well, if your wife wins the jury one, are you planning on suing?
Oh, either way, we're planning on bringing a tort claim against these guys.
Oh,
I mean, if
you didn't mind saying it.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I mean, there has to be a correction.
Mm-hmm.
So we already have an investigation, a legislative committee to investigate DCYF, which is going forward. DCYF, we have clear evidence of wrongdoing by DCYF. And the thing is, if they're just going to make up, this particular social worker is going to just make up straight up blatant lies, saying the police said this. One of the things that has to happen to her is some independent committee, not some, it's not somebody in the government who collects a pension fund. So that and I think that New Hampshire is one of the only places this can happen. I'm sorry. So somebody independent has to investigate these guys and has to look through all the court filings of this particular social worker because she's a known liar. And also she is being defended by this attorney, Ross McLeod, who is also like a known career dirtbag here in New Hampshire. You just ask anybody, who's paying attention to politics. As soon as I mention his name, it's like it really raises some eyebrows because he's like, there's a lot of accusations, about this guy who's just, a hardcore leftist, and is like supports all of the radical left stuff.
The one I called Harry Potter.
I don't know who that is. I'm saying just Ross McLeod, who's an attorney for DCYF.
Oh, I was talking about the whoever the attorney is. It's like against your wife in the courtroom.
Oh, that was
Peter Pan. That's what I called him.
That was the soy boy Concord City's prosecutor guy. Yeah. So, anyways. Yeah, Peter Pan. But anyways, Ross McLeod, for example, who's this attorney that files these contempt orders, he submits them into the court on the behalf of the social workers. And the thing is the reason they're submitting these contempt orders is because people aren't agreeing to the assessment order, and the assessment order doesn't order a mom or dad, it orders a police officer or a social worker to do this assessment.
But they're just treating it as if, oh, well, you're ordered to let me in your house.
Right. So
it's crazy.
So they're falsifying, they're misrepresenting. This is called maladministration, and this guy does it over and over and over again. This Ross McLeod, and he was also the same lawyer that was involved with the trespass on J.R. Holt. Literally, this Ross McLeod has cost millions of dollars of liabilities to the people of New Hampshire. And he's not even employed by DCYF. He's employed by the Attorney General's office. And of course, because he collects probably out of...
They got money to burn, Jay.
Right. Well, and they collect money out of the judicial pension fund, and they're members of this pension fund, and this pension fund gets, heavily contributed from this Title 4D Social Security Administration based on the performance of family court and DCYF. So these guys are career criminals, and they are bad actors. And the thing is this needs to be exposed. So these guys are going to be investigated by the legislature. Now, the reason that New Hampshire is so great, and as many people who love liberty should move here as possible, is because New Hampshire is one of the few states, maybe the only state, that has an actual volunteer. Like, there's $100 per year stipend. $100 is nothing. It's like a tank of gas in your pickup truck. Mm-hmm. So they are given $100 a year to be a state representative. And because there is 400 of these state representatives, and there's only like 1.3 million people, in New Hampshire, the lobbyists have to buy like 250 of these guys. They have to lobby hard to only basically, effectively, apply whatever they want to lobby to 1.3 million people. It's not lucrative for lobbyists to lobby the legislature in New Hampshire when they got places like Massachusetts, where there's tens of millions of people, or California or Connecticut, and there's very few legislators that you can lobby. And therefore, you can rein your will, and, essentially lobbying for the lobbyists, lobbying the government, means that these lobbyists' interests get richer and richer based off rules and legislation. That doesn't really happen in New Hampshire because of the essential volunteer citizenry legislature we have here. So we have a legislature that doesn't have a legislative pension fund, and based on what I'm understanding about this, Social Security Administration Title IV financial incentives that are based on the performance of DCYF, all these states are getting all kinds of money, and a whole bunch of pension funds are getting money, not just a judicial pension fund, but like all kinds of money is flowing into these states. So the legislatures of all these states like Massachusetts, New York, California, Illinois, it's just the states that are just basically cesspools, are totally compromised. Here in New Hampshire, they're not.
Well, one thing I want to say is that people should definitely in New Hampshire at least push back against this progressive idea that, it's bad that we only pay the state representatives $100 a year here because that just means that only rich people can do it. I think that's ridiculous because not that many people I know that do it are rich. Sure, a lot of them are old, so have something to be doing or have nothing to be doing.
Right. What happens is that we end up with a lot of people that are over the retirement age and that sort of thing. So
it doesn't even seem like a lot compared to like how old New Hampshire is. Like there's tons of young ones that, or at least like middle age.
There are more now because my guess is the Free Staters are very dedicated to being there, but there's a lot of them that are especially 20 years ago there's a lot of old people because they're the only ones that had the
idea it needs
free
to be
time
turned into an actual we need a living wage in the legislature is ridiculous.
Are they saying that?
No, they are. Okay. They really are saying that. I don't know why I said no, but they are progressives on Twitter, especially this one short-haired progressive House of Representative person in New Hampshire. She posts about that and she says the way that we have it right now, only retired people and the rich can really do this. But so we need a living wage, and it's just that's absolutely ridiculous. The idea that we need an incentive for just anyone to want to go do that is so stupid.
I kind of think that I don't doubt for a second that that's happening, but I feel like this isn't going to go anywhere in New Hampshire, that most people are happy with the $100 a year that the representatives get and that sort of thing. And I think there's advantages to it. I wouldn't call it a perfect system by any stretch. It's worth pointing out that New Hampshire is marginally freer than, the rest of the states, and that our legislator only managed to save us that much. And whereas, I'm in Florida right now, Florida's number 2, it pays its representatives. I think everybody else pays their representatives besides New Hampshire. And I'm not advocating for paying representatives, just saying that New Hampshire needs support. This one fact isn't going to save it.
Wait, I'm a little confused by what you mean there. What do you mean? You mean that New Hampshire's doing bad?
No, New Hampshire's doing well as far as liberty goes, and it'll probably be the freest state in the union at some point. I do wonder how free it can get, because it can only get as free as a state can get. But at this time, the citizen legislature isn't going to save New Hampshire. It needs more. It needs more things. People getting involved in the government. People who want to spend their lives getting in there and
then you think
voting.
You got to think about there's the backlash, there's the pendulum swing, because Free Staters really want to get into the legislature and they get really into it, and then there's the pendulum swing of the Democrats that for some reason the Free Staters who were in the legislature all decided were the enemy. No, the enemy's not the state. No, what's her name, Leah Cushman, She is going to still vote for you to not be able to do drugs because, even though she claims to be like a libertarian, because, well, she doesn't want to piss off the Republicans because the real enemy is the Democrat. And I'm not just picking on her. It's just a great example. It's what happens when all these free staters get into the state house. They suddenly are just like, the enemy is the Democrats. We just want to be a little tiny bit better instead of like much better. And since they do that, all of the Democrats are just gonna pendulum swing right back and get really serious about being in the
Bonnie, I don't think that there's
too.
I don't think there's any solving the Democrat problem. I moved to New Hampshire in 2006, and the Democrats were dead set against us there. I don't know why the Democrats are dead set against the Free Staters.
That's
it
what I'm
seems
saying.
like they
I could tell you.
I
should
know
work.
why. Because
Well,
the
no,
people that
I'll
I'm
tell you
talking about-
why. Because they're evil.
Right.
That's why.
It's
I mean,
because-
I've watched these people, Bonnie. We tried to work with them for a long time. We were like, hey, bring us your issues. We'll work with you when you're in power on the issues. They're like, no, you want what we want for the wrong reasons. And they wouldn't work with us. They've shut us down.
Mark,
every
you're acting like, who
opportunity.
is we? Like, because you're acting like that the people
Free
I'm
staters.
talking about, free staters, ever did any of this. No. Are you even on Twitter?
Yes, they did. Well, I don't know what happens on Twitter. I know what happens in the New Hampshire State House.
You weren't in the New
or
Hampshire
did.
State House.
No, but he paid attention.
Yeah, but okay,
I
give one example
lived
instead
there.
of just saying a thing. Give an example.
Sure. The getting rid of the death penalty. I tried to work with more than one rep on this particular issue, and they didn't want to talk to me. They're like, they would not speak to me about the issue.
Okay, drugs. I talked to one on my street who's a keen Democrat, and she listened to me and put in the bill that she was already planning on putting in. So it's not really like I did it or anything, but it's not like she didn't. She said, "Go F yourself. I'm not going to put it in because you're a free stater." She knows exactly who I am and who Ian is.
I think that
There's one example you gave. I gave one example back.
Whatever bill you put in,
And I'm not.
I hope
you're
I
arguing
hope
against something
you're successful.
other than what I'm saying. You're arguing against something
No,
other
what
than what
I'm
I'm saying.
saying is that Democrats traditionally in New Hampshire have hated our guts. That's all I'm saying.
And here's why. Because the Democrats are like clearly the parasite class. Especially they, them, and those that, get a tax paycheck. They get a paycheck from the taxpayers. So the Democrats are definitely the kind of people who couldn't put food on the table without being subsidized by the government, for the most part. I do believe a lot of them would pull up their big boy pants and actually go do something to provide for themselves if they didn't have their, bureaucratic parasite job. Now, the mission statement of the Free State Project is to reduce government to its maximum authority as a protection of life, liberty, and property.
But how many of them know that?
A lot of them. So when that happens, that means all of their pension funds would cease to exist immediately. None of these guys would have a pension fund if the only purpose of government was to protect life, liberty, and property. Because the only way they can have a pension fund is to point guns at people and force them to pay taxes.
But the
Jay,
people in
I
the
think that- I
state
think
house
that
don't
the
have pension funds.
That's true. I think that the Democrats' time in New Hampshire State House is gone. At this point, they're a minor party. I believe that enough Democrats have left New Hampshire because they see that it is too difficult to win any kind of positions. They're never going to have a majority status again, and that therefore
Why? We're
they
half and
have
half now. They clawed back from the first year that I moved here to the second year. They clawed back a whole bunch more seats.
They don't get them linearly. They get them during years with presidential runs. Did they get a majority?
No, it's like 50-50, as 50-50
Close.
as it can be. And it wasn't the year I
Here's
moved
another
here.
thing, too. The Democrats are also genociding themselves. So, like, they're literally pushing things like abortion, for example, as like a like a prerequisite to like even being cool in their club. Like, all girls should have abortions. They're literally so abortion as a form of contraceptive, and the thing is, like I used to be sort of like pro-life. Now I'm more like, well, if you want to have an abortion, you probably shouldn't be a parent.
Yeah,
that's my thought too.
And
Is if you want an abortion, please get one.
Yeah, and so it's like, but also like, I mean, I don't know if like, so in New Hampshire, if you kill a pregnant mom, are you being charged with, vehicular homicide? Like you drive your car into a pregnant mom? Are you being charged with double homicide?
Mm-hmm.
Well, then, if the law is going to be consistent, like it's supposed to be, sounds like it'd be murder if you, going to apply consistency. It sounds like abortion would be murder.
Well, I don't think there's really any point in making the laws consistent. They just, they're inconsistent for other reasons. But one thing about it is that person wanted that baby to be alive, and I think that actually does matter. And I know people are like, oh, so it's just whether or not the baby you want it. I get that might not make much sense, but it has to be an actual factor. Like, do I want to do this labor of giving this baby life, or do I not?
So what if the mom was on the way to the abortion clinic and had a scheduled appointment, and she gets, killed in a, some kind of horrific accident, and her and a baby, or just a baby die, and maybe the mom lives, then is it vehicular homicide on the part of the baby?
Well, because the prosecutor wants to get them in jail for as long as possible, because we have laws, not because normal people are sitting around thinking about it.
Right. The courts are not about justice. In fact, I'm doing some pretty heavy duty research. These courts are actually just financial institutions. They're just banks. All they do is charge and discharge, and every time the judge creates an order, it's essentially a money order. But one of the things about with these Democrats, another thing that they're doing with the whole gender nonsense is, so the Democrats, the lefts. So I've been studying some statistics on internet device usage of young children, and it is leftist families, it is leftist parents that are heavily allowing their children to use the internet devices. So in this study, Mark, that I sent you. It's called Children's Health in the Digital Age. They talk about how in 2016 that children from 3 to 9 years old and also from 13 to 19 years old, I don't know why they leave out 10, 11, and 12 in this study. It's just weird to me. But anyways, according to the metadata of the apps, in 2016, those kids were using those internet device 7 hours per day. And in 2021, they were using the internet device 9 hours per day. So basically you have kids that are using internet devices 9 hours a day, and then you have kids like mine that are just not using internet devices at all. So what I am observing, and based on this study and articles I've read and just, listening to TED Talks and YouTube videos, while I'm working or driving or something, it is the leftist, career-minded, especially non-traditional moms that are going to work that are hardcore leaning on these internet devices as pacifiers and babysitters, and they're destroying their own youth.
I don't think that there's a large percentage of people. If you divide people into who votes Republican and who votes Democrat, it seems like the Democrat voters who are wealthy moms going to work, using devices as some kind of child rearing, gadget. I think that they're a low percentage of the people who vote Democrat who have children. I think those children are a low percentage.
Well, 603-283-6160, and if you have something you want to bring up, you can call that number. It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160. More coming up.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. Forkfest.party.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The United Nations says around 150,000 Palestinians are being forced to flee areas around central Gaza as Israeli forces advance on refugee camps there. The conflict has now stretched on for almost 3 months. The Israeli invasion of the Gaza Strip was triggered by the October 7th attack on Israeli territory by the Palestinian militant group Hamas, which controls Gaza, in which more than 1,200 Israelis were killed, mostly civilians, and more than 200 were taken hostage. FSN's Trent Murray has the latest from Tel Aviv.
We know that reinforcements are being deployed to the south of Gaza around Khan Yunis, and that is a really critical city because it is being used right now as an evacuation hub for people who have already fled the fighting in the north and central parts of Gaza. We know a number of even Israel's closest partners like the United States and Germany are beginning to ask questions about just when this phase of the war will end and transition to something that is a little bit more targeted. I think not helping that pressure from an Israeli perspective is news that has come through today from the IDF, where they have effectively admitted to making a mistake leading to the death of dozens of civilians. The IDF says on Sunday it launched an airstrike in central Gaza. It said that it used the wrong type of munition, which caused extensive collateral damage. It went on to say that it regrets harm to those uninvolved in the conflict and is working to learn lessons from the incident.
The UN has also warned that the human rights situation in the occupied West Bank is rapidly deteriorating. In a new report, the UN states that 300 Palestinians, including 77 children, have been killed there since October 7th. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
The UN's High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, says Israel's use of military tactics in the West Bank is extremely troubling. The UN says that Israel has imposed severe restrictions on movement and arrested more than 4,700 Palestinians since October 7th. The war body is also calling on Israel to take effective steps to end settler violence against Palestinian communities. An Israeli official has described the UN report as quite ridiculous and belittles the major security threats Israelis are facing.
The U.S. and Mexico are hailing what both countries call important and productive talks aimed at stemming the flow of migrants to the U.S. America's top diplomat Antony Blinken visited Mexico on Wednesday to meet President Andrés Manuel López Obrador at a time when border crossings into the U.S. are hitting record numbers, with often as many as 10,000 migrants reaching the southern border per day as thousands more trek through Mexico. From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Donald Trump has launched a fresh broadside at Jack Smith, the U.S. Department of Justice special prosecutor who indicted the former president on charges of attempting to subvert the outcome of the 2020 election. Mr. Smith is eager for the case to go to trial on schedule on March the 4th, but that is the eve of Super Tuesday, the day on which the race for the Republican Party's presidential nomination goes national. Trump's legal team is claiming the presidency conveys immunity on their client. Last week, the Supreme Court refused the prosecutor's request to fast-track a decision on the matter. Mick Mulvaney, Trump's former White House chief of staff, explains.
What Trump has done is said, look, I'm immune from this lawsuit because I was president. And there's been a dispute in the lower court right now as to whether or not the federal government can even bring this lawsuit against him for the January 6th riots. The prosecutor wanted to take that immediately to the Supreme Court in order to fast track the decision. The Supreme Court said, no, we're going to let this appeal work its way through the courts normally, which will slow it down a little bit, which will mean that there's a chance now that trial will not begin before Super Tuesday and may take several months after that.
Of course, Trump is trying to kick the legal football into the long grass and on Wednesday called his prosecutor deranged, accusing Mr. Smith of being engaged in a desperate rush to get the case to trial. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The UN says around 150,000 Palestinians are being forced to flee regions of central Gaza as Israeli forces advance on refugee camps there. The UN is also warning that the human rights situation in the occupied West Bank is rapidly deteriorating, and the U.S. and Mexico are hailing what both countries call important and productive talks aimed at stemming the flow of migrants to the U.S. That is the latest feature story news.
According to a report released today, the vast majority of American children lack the presence of a strong, sculpted male supermodel, with less than 4% of youngsters being taught the important values of respecting runway etiquette, maintaining a glistening six-pack, and walking a catwalk with verve and flair.
The number of strong-jawed male supermodels in children's lives has declined to record lows, leaving the majority of our youth unaware of how to get comfortable in front of the camera during an underwear shoot, or even perform something as simple as a sexy but stylish full turn.
Stanton went on to say that impoverished communities were especially affected by the lack of Adonis-like male figures, and added that children in lower-class homes were over 80% less likely to grow into the type of high-cheekboned, studly he-men that succeed in haute couture society.
Quite frankly, these children are just not getting the necessary influence of a dynamic male supermodel who can both make puppy dog eyes at the camera and also radiate that sort of raw, unabashed machismo that forces fashionistas to look up and take notice.
This is the Onion News Network.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. And 603-283-6160 is the phone number for you to call. That's 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, you've got me, Bonnie.
Jay.
And Mark.
And Jay had his promo to tell you about Anarchapulco. What is that, Jay?
So Anarchapulco is the largest international freedom conference, from what I understand. And it happens February 11th to 16th in Acapulco, Mexico. So if you guys know who Jeff Berwick, Dollar Vigilante, is, he does these walk-in talks, vigilante.tv with his dog Lucy. And now he's got a son. I think Jeff has really come along, done some brain development since
Does he have
he's
like
had
a baby?
Yeah, he's got a baby that's almost a year old. So like I'm pretty primed to talk to basically he's my audience. You know, men or people with kids or people who want kids, and in general people who want to invest in our posterity. That is what I'm going to be speaking about at Anarchapulco. I'm also just filled out the paperwork to do a workshop. I don't know if they're going to pick my workshop. I really have never done a workshop, but I pitched them on doing a workshop about solutions on what to do, what kind of individual solutions, depending on, what your culture is, where you live, what you have for money to, get your kids in the mindset of earning their dopamine hits and not getting addicted to getting free dopamine hits from the internet devices. So Anarchapulco is going to be a great time. There's going to be all kinds of speakers there. In fact, a lot of them I'm very excited to meet. And it's a beautiful place to go. The place is, the secret garden looks really good. It's coming back to life. They've got it cleaned up. This is where they host this event down there in Acapulco. And if you go to acapulco.com/tickets and you use the coupon code J, that's JAY, you can get a 10% discount. And there's all kinds of stuff that they're actually going to have going on. There's Agroforco, which is going to be the week after in Acapulco.
Who runs that one?
What's that?
Do you know who runs that one?
It's a decentralized event, basically our equivalent to Fork Fest.
Mm-hmm.
And so I plan on being there for Agroforco. And then February 17th through 18th, there is a Game Changers. And that location is to be announced. But the Game Changers thing is like, Jeff Berwick's been pitching this as like, if you really want to like step it up and do the hard work, this Game Changers thing is, going to make you Superman or something is the way he pitches it. But, I mean, but he's he's done a lot of good things, I think, and a lot of people seem to like the guy, and they've been satisfied with his work, and I want liberty in my lifetime, and I feel going to Acapulco and presenting to people how to my idea and investing in our posterity is how we're going to get there, because we need the future generations to just not be reliant on government. We need them to be, independent, strong people, and, not, when you earn when you get free dopamine hits as a child, it's quite likely you're going to grow up just wanting to be a parasite and not earn your dopamine hits from, working hard, for example.
Well, thank you so much, Jay, for sharing that with us about in Acapulco. There was a hurricane there, and they're still gonna go on with stuff. I saw a chunk taken out of a hotel there. It's a pretty crazy hurricane, that some people think was not real.
Yeah, Jeff Berwick thinks it was a directed weapon, basically, sent directly into Max Egan's house. I don't know if you guys know who Max Egan is.
I've heard that name.
He refers to himself as the Crow House. I listen to his things on LBRY. He's on Odyssey and ButChute and Vigilante.
Is he the one that him and his wife do audiobooks? That
Nope,
guy? Oh,
nope.
okay. I don't know who that is, but I know the name. Well, it looks like we have the caller on the line. Skeeter in California. Oh, you got to turn your radio off. Okay, never mind. Actually, sorry, I can't talk to you, Skeeter. 603-283-6160. Skeeter doesn't follow the rules, so he doesn't get to be on the air. But you can. 603-283-6160. Listen,
Sounds
I
like you're
answered his
carrying
phone.
a grudge against Skeeter.
No, I just don't like to talk to him, and he calls the entire show. That's actually like, if I believed in police, he could get in trouble for that. He literally is on
just
like
nonstop.
literally doing like stalking or whatever it is, harassment. He's harassing me every single day that I do the show, and I don't want to talk to him.
You can't give the telephone number and then call harassment.
No, I told him I don't want to talk to him, so that's not the same thing. He knows the telephone number, but I'm not inviting him to call. Well, Ian told me how to block people, and it doesn't work.
So anyways, Mark, I would like to kind of brainstorm with you a little bit here live on the air. I want to tell you about an idea I have. So I do want to run for state representative again. My wife doesn't really want me to because, she just would rather, have
That'd
me
be a
at
lot
home.
of time, yeah.
But I think me literally running as a state representative and not even going to the state house and not even doing a darn thing would be a lot better than someone who's going to go there and vote for masks, vote for mandated injections, someone who's, basically a, brain dead, Democrat type, that just, loves the state and everything, the state wants to do, because those are basically who, I ran against before. So New Hampshire, in the area I'm in, the voting district is Henniker, Bradford, and Warner. And basically who decides who wins the vote is the college, because Henniker's a college town. So
What college?
New England College.
Okay, I'm not even familiar with it, but all right.
It's like
Isn't that the one in Hillsborough?
No, New England College is in Henniker.
Or that's what I meant. Sorry, I
yeah.
mixed those two up.
And so basically, from what I understand, it's sort of like a liberal arts college. All the kids I have talked to are going to school for like educational studies, childhood something or another, liberal arts degrees. So basically, and the demographic of it is inner city kids, from what I understand, and they must
be pretty bored out in Henniker.
they're all afraid of the woods. They're all like afraid of bears. I've definitely I'm like, what's the worst thing about being here? They're like, oh, I'm scared of bears. Everyone said they're scared of bears. The boys and the girls that I've talked
guns. But then again, you need a crazy gun for a bear, right?
Well, the bears in New Hampshire generally go the other way, unless
yeah, someone was telling me if I have coconut with me, a bear will not mess with me, and I was like, what are you talking about? He's a Chihuahua. And they were like, a bear will not mess with coconut barking at them
unless the bear knows how good coconut tastes, because bears do definitely like to eat small animals if they can. But the thing in New Hampshire is, unless you like mess with a mama bear, or that mama bear feels like you're threatening her cubs, they're generally gonna leave you alone. If you see bear cubs, you need to make it a point to get the hell out of there. That is when you're going to be in trouble, is if there is bear cubs.
That's good advice. I'd say moose are more dangerous in New Hampshire than bears.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You hit a moose, what happens is a moose is very tall, their legs are long and lanky, and their center of gravity is up very high, and what happens is all of that 95% of that moose's mass lands on your
moose mass.
Moose mass lands on your lap.
That's terrifying.
And it actually lands on your steering wheel and drives that into your lap, and that is usually what causes.
Yep. For those that don't know what it's like to hit a moose, it's like a full 80-gallon hot water heater suspended on 4 6-foot 2x4s. It just you hit. You knock the 2x4s over, and then the hot water heater, full hot water heater, lands right through the windshield of a regular car.
Yeah, I did a job knocking on doors for politicians in New Hampshire, but I was smarter than everybody else, so I made sure that my job was mostly getting in the car and going to pick up this guy from over here and bringing him to this neighborhood. So I wasn't like out in the middle of nowhere very often, and unless it was like, oh, I was really needed to be walking far away from my car. But even then, it's like a lot of times things were far enough away I could drive house to house. But anyways, tons of my friends have been just walking and been like, there's a freaking mama bear and there's all its babies.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what do? You just got to be quiet and careful because they don't have cars with them. They're just walking past them and they just have to be, don't go near them.
And I think when it comes to encountering bears, bear spray would be more effective than a gun. And probably the most effective part of the gun is the noise of the gun. More so than the bullet. Unless you're going to carry like a Desert Eagle 50 cal with you, or you have a shotgun, carrying with you. But like your, 9mm, or even a 45, like. Unless you hit them square in the head, like bears, like just don't care. If they're going to come after you, they're coming after you.
That about the noise makes sense because a lot of people in Utah would say, not obviously a gun would be better, but another good weapon, quote unquote, against the cougars. Because sometimes I'd be like, that's so creepy. There's cougars in the mountains. Well, people would say, all you need is a flashlight. If you flash a flashlight at them, they'll freak out and leave. And I don't know if that's true, but a lot of people said that to me.
So my thought is that in these college towns like my town, the college kids just all vote Democrat. They don't even care. So I would definitely run as a Democrat, and we have.
I would think the kids. So in your town, does the Democrat normally get elected?
Always,
because it's always a Democrat.
Yeah, it's a college town, so it makes sense.
Well, I would think they wouldn't even run at all, to be honest. Or excuse me, they wouldn't vote at all. The college kids.
Oh, sure. It's like a real big thing.
They go bust them in for one thing. Like college kids are not interested in it, or maybe a lot of them are not interested in it, but a bunch of them get bussed to go vote, and they all are like, well, I guess I'm a Democrat.
They have whole things. So, but the thing is so basically all you really got to do is just go engage the college kids, which is actually pretty easy to do. So like one of the things that like the Democrats have when it comes to voting is their constituents are basically living in these dorm buildings, whether it be low income housing, whether it be apartment blocks within the cities. So what they can do is they can go literally knock on like 10 doors an hour, to where out in rural America where the conservatives are is it's you how many doors could you knock on an hour, Bonnie, when you were doing your campaigning?
Well, okay, you shouldn't ask me, but one of my friends who takes the job really seriously, at one point they were asking him to knock on 150 doors a day, and that was like, wow, that's really hard. It's normally like 75 to 80 or something like that.
Now that sounds like
And
in
those
a
are
suburb.
good people. Yeah.
You know where I live, right?
No, I'm talking about even in New Hampshire, but
I'm just saying in
think I
like,
drove around.
like Henniker, New Hampshire, which is a big spread of land. Ware, New Hampshire, big spread of land. You know, you got to get in a car, drive a couple minutes to the next driveway.
Mm-hmm.
So, some of my neighbors' driveways, like if, you need a 4-wheel drive pickup truck on a day like today just to get up the driveway if it's like raining and, because they got a dirt, sloshy driveway. When even like, all over New Hampshire's, rural America is like that. It's very hard to get out and like convince people to vote. So people really need a reason to vote for somebody. But in the Democrat area, in the dense areas, the Democrat ground game is really, really good because they can go there and convince people to vote. If you, especially like, the guy who's running for the position himself goes and talks to people, they are quite likely, going to vote.
And that's what
Now,
David Hathaway did. David Hathaway, who's a sheriff in Nogales, Arizona, he and his wife went door to door talking to people, and she would even send them letters because she's just a really caring person who remembers like all their kids' names and would be like, "How's your kid doing?" and all this stuff. And he won like by a landslide, being the newbie.
But what we need is we need more free staters willing to, or liberty-minded people in general. It doesn't even have to be free staters, but let's just say free staters to run as Democrats in these college towns, because just like Aria, she ran for sheriff here.
Yeah, as a Republican.
As a Republican, as a, trans Satanist. I forget what her whole spiel was off the top of my head. And this is still making national news. I hear people talk about, this on podcasts again and again. They're like, oh yeah, this trans dude that is the high priestess of this Satan's
They still
reform
talk about it?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yep. Ran as a Republican in New Hampshire and won the primary for sheriff. It basically goes to show that people don't pay attention who they're voting for.
Yep,
Well, that's the truth.
wanted
That's
an
for
R.
sure.
So in these
So
college
let me
towns-
answer the question, Jay. When it comes to running for New Hampshire State House, I would agree that running and doing nothing more than winning, that running in and of itself has value when it comes to New Hampshire. That winning, you are a better rep than a Democrat that actually shows up, and probably better than a Republican that shows up. That you vote half by not voting, you vote half right on every issue. Then when it comes to actually going and being one of the 400 reps in New Hampshire, I think you have to kind of look at what it's like at town meeting. How many people show up at town meeting in Henniker?
Literally only the parasite class shows up.
What's the number?
Like 85 people.
Right. So town meeting, you know what it's like to propose something at town meeting. You know what it's like to call for a vote. You know what it's like to vote against something in town meeting. And it's nearly ineffective. When you're among 400 people, the likelihood that you're going to be the deciding vote is low. So I almost recommend against going. I'm not saying I do. I think that the reps that go to every single opportunity to go for every committee, everything, those are the people that have the real power. And frankly, I believe you could have that kind of power without even being elected as a rep. If you just even didn't have the vote, you just went and, gave your opinion every day in, New Hampshire and gave it in a clear and concise fashion, that you could develop your own political pull without even being a rep.
That's a good point.
Not that I'm recommending doing that. I'm just saying that the world's largest, the state's largest legislative body among the states is a big body, and it's hard to be meaningful in that body.
So you're saying it would be better to just run and get city councilor or something?
I think if I ran, my advice to Jay would be this: is run, show up for the big votes because that's once a week. Dedicate half a day, 3/4 of a day to go and vote on some issues. That way you're getting your votes in and no one can say, hey, he's been absent, or at least get enough votes in that you're not counted as absent on the very biggest days. I mean, I think it's done on Wednesdays, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And that's my guess, tops 10 Wednesdays per year. So, if you're giving up 3/4 of a day,
you
10
do
days
have to think how much more, dedicated those people are to getting their people involved. First of all, Democrats in general, 10 times more dedicated to getting their people, specific person
they got nothing better to do
involved.
but make sure that they get their people involved. It's their livelihood. This is the whole deal, and the amount of money that comes into New Hampshire from like out of state for like all these Democrat things is
Especially
insane.
It's crazy. So when I went and held signs for Matt Santanastasso in Dublin, I kind of made friends with the older Democrat ladies there just because I stood up for myself against a man, and they liked that. And then they were like, well, why are you holding a Republican sign? I mean, but whatever. And I was listening to their conversations together whenever their friends would walk in. They were all like, so vote yes on this and no on that. They were like giving them instructions. They were like, yes. So remember from the meeting, vote yes on this and no on that. Vote for blah, blah, blah. And they're telling them who to vote for.
Oh, yeah. So when I was holding a sign outside of the polling place in Henniker for the primary and the general, so many people came up to me. They're like, Jay, I don't know who to vote for. Who's any good here? Who's all right? And I'm like, well, all the guys that are, Republican for state representative actually. So what was kind of cool is all the Republicans that ran in my district, there was 6 of us in the primary, but there was only 3 seats, is every one of them was pretty much like principled constitutionalist freedom type. 2 of them were free staters. And
including you?
Yes. And 4 of them were like locals that and I had talked with all these guys and we all very much shared similar values, agreed government should be very, very small. But what was interesting is I got to chat with the Democrat guy, Tony Kaplan, who I ran against him and he ended up winning. And he's a nice guy. He's all right to chat with, but but the guy has like not much wisdom, when it comes to he thinks like the Federal Reserve is doing a fantastic job.
Wow.
He thinks like Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and Bill Gates are good. He believes that, everybody should have to wear masks during a health emergency. He doesn't think that you have the freedom not to be vaccinated because, that this is how plagues move around. And how plagues, he's just, he has no wisdom, but he's never really had an actual job. He's been like an educator his whole life, from what I understand. But there was this older woman there that was very sweet, and she was holding up these Democrat signs, and we started talking about something about nutrition. And I says, well, yeah, a lot of I used to be 300 pounds. And she's like, wow. She was, you look very good now. How'd you do that? I go, I just stopped eating all government subsidized food for about 6 months. And I went from 265 pounds to, 210 pounds.
What did she say to that?
She's like, oh, wait. I don't understand what government subsidized food is.
Was she fat?
No.
Okay.
So this woman had a background in nutrition, and she was she was actually like pretty darn good looking lady for being like near 70 years old and probably
okay, old. So that makes a lot of sense. I feel like a lot of old people, really old people, are not that fat because they didn't eat like crap their whole lives.
But she understood all of this stuff about like, Monsanto and the Roundup and the glyphosate and how it came from Agent Orange and like, and I'm like, well, you can't get a government subsidy unless you use all that stuff, a government crop subsidy. And she's like, I know, I didn't know that. I says, yeah. I go, the reason we have and she's an environmentalist. And I'm like, well, the reason that we have a Mississippi dead zone is because of government farm subsidies. All of those fake synthetic manure, synthetic fertilizer that is running down to Mississippi only exists because that's what you're required to use for your Monsanto growing practices to get your federal crop subsidy check.
603-283-6160 is the phone number for you to get in on the conversation with us and bring up whatever's on your mind. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live. More coming up.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The state of Maine has ruled that Donald Trump is ineligible to appear on its primary ballot. In the 34-page ruling, Maine's Secretary of State Shenna Bellows writes that Trump used a false narrative of election fraud to inflame his supporters and direct them to the Capitol on January 6, 2021. According to Bellows, that disqualifies Trump from his attempt to return to the White House due to the 14th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which prohibits people who have engaged in insurrection from holding office. It's the same argument used in the state of Colorado, which has also ordered Trump removed from its primary ballot. A spokesperson for the Trump campaign says it plans to file an objection and called Bellows a hyper-partisan Biden-supporting Democrat and accused her of election interference. The legality of the rulings in Maine and Colorado, and potentially other states, is expected to eventually be decided by the U.S. Supreme Court. The United Nations says around 150,000 Palestinians are being forced to flee areas around central Gaza as Israeli forces advance on refugee camps there. The conflict has now stretched on for almost 3 months. The Israeli invasion of the Gaza Strip was triggered by the October 7th attack on Israeli territory by the Palestinian militant group Hamas, which controls Gaza, in which more than 1,200 Israelis were killed, mostly civilians, and more than 200 were taken hostage. FSN's Trent Murray has the latest from Tel Aviv.
We know that reinforcements are being deployed to the south of Gaza around Khan Yunis, and that is a really critical city because it is being used right now as an evacuation hub for people who have already fled the fighting in the north and central parts of Gaza. We know a number of even Israel's closest partners like the United States and Germany are beginning to ask questions about just when this phase of the war will end and transition to something that is a little bit more targeted. I think not helping that pressure from an Israeli perspective is news that has come through today from the IDF, where they have effectively admitted to making a mistake leading to the death of dozens of civilians. The IDF says on Sunday it launched an airstrike in central Gaza. It said that it used the wrong type of munition, which caused extensive collateral damage. It went on to say that it regrets harm to those uninvolved in the conflict and is working to learn lessons from the incident.
The U.S. and Mexico are hailing what both countries call important and productive talks aimed at stemming the flow of migrants to the U.S. America's top diplomat, Antony Blinken, visited Mexico on Wednesday to meet President Andrés Manuel López Obrador at a time when border crossings into the U.S. are hitting record numbers. From Bureaus Worldwide.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. And 603-283-6160 is the phone number that you can call to get in on the conversation with us. And it looks like we actually have a couple callers on the line right now. 603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, we've got me, Bonnie.
Jay.
And me, Mark Edge.
And we have Dodger on the line in, is that Minnesota or Michigan? Wait, Michigan, right? Dodger?
Michigan. Yes, Bonnie.
What's on your mind?
Kalamazoo. Yes. Actually, I kind of fanboying out here with both Jay Noon and Mark.
Wait. So you're telling me that Free Talk Live isn't going to fail because I put Mark on there instead of the person we had before?
Heck no.
Excellent.
At either rate, I've called in the past about actually kind of manning up at the age of 17 and emancipating myself. And I'm not sure who necessarily was on the air, but yes, I just don't understand. And I've only been listening for a few minutes tonight, but with Jay Noon and Mark on the air, I'd kind of like a little insight as to how somebody at the age of 17 can actually go out and make a way for themselves in this world, kind of like I did.
You mean today, then that would be more difficult? Is that the suggestion?
Well, this was in 2000 when I did it. So, I mean, it's 23 years later.
So am I just predicting how you did it in the past, or do you want me to say how to do it now?
How would one do it now? Because I know how I did it then.
Yeah. Well, it's right. I guess the one most valuable trait in an employee. I wouldn't go start my own business straight away. Just coming out of the house with not a penny to my with not two nickels to rub together. But the one trait that's valuable then that is valuable now is attitude when it comes to an employee. In my opinion, an employee, a 17-year-old with the right attitude, can walk into pretty much any business, get himself hired, and manage to move up relatively quickly simply because he or she care about their job. Because it's very difficult to put together the kind that particular skill. And I know I didn't have it when I was 17. And
no,
it's
I can promise you that that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
So is it harder nowadays for 17-year-olds? Is that the idea?
I don't think so. So I definitely.
I think the government's made it harder for 17-year-olds to get work, but a good attitude will trump that any day.
So people are really desperate for work right now. So like one of my good friends, he has a business locally. And he's got a young man working for him, and the kid's like, I think he's 20 years old, and this is his second job, and his job before that was a dishwasher for 8 months.
At McDonald's, right?
I don't know. This is a different guy.
Oh, I'm thinking someone else.
So
but
you
don't watch things at McDonald's.
Yeah, I don't think there are dishes
yeah,
really watching.
You're right.
McDonald's.
We were just talking about it yesterday. They do it in France now because they're forcing them to not have one-use wrappers and stuff. But it's funny because it's like the second guy you've told basically this kind of story about, who is a 20-year-old, used to work at somewhere else, and now he's out. He
was working at a mom and pop restaurant, and now he's working at basically like a small engine repair, type. They work on a lot of little equipment. They do a lot of maintenance. Good little business, and the guy who is a father and son that own a business, and the young man, he has very, very little experience, but what he does have is he has ambition. And he doesn't really have his confidence is building. He's only been working there for about 4 or 5 weeks, from what I understand. But he's always like, every time I'm there, he's like doing something. He's finding something to do. As soon as he's like done with a task, he goes and asks, "What's the next task?" And he's pretty good about also like doing homework. So one of the things I suggested to this kid is like, hey, you want to learn about this particular machine and what maintenance it requires, or any of the machines, just go on YouTube and just, internet search, what the machine is, because they got all kinds of equipment at this place. And, what the maintenance interviews are, what you want to do for maintenance, how, what it needs. Because a lot of the jobs that these guys are doing is maintenance. So he does that stuff. And I often tell kids that they should go home and they should investigate questions that customers ask on their own time to make themselves like a better employee. Like there's a camper place down the road, and a girl was like 17 years old working a cash register, and she didn't have
selling like RVs.
Yeah, basically she was working in like the store. There's like a little retail store there, and she didn't have the answer for a question that a customer had in front of me, and she had to go get somebody. I'm like, oh, I know how to answer that question. I've dealt with this thing before. And then I said to the girl, I says, you should make it a point to like write this down and like internet search. So like 2 weeks later, I go in there and her boss was like, oh, did you tell so-and-so that she should like internet search this on her own time? She's been doing that.
Nice.
And she's going to be the last one to get fired, when it comes time for layoffs or winter time or whatever, because, she showed value. But the other thing
really
too
nice.
is I would add to this, to Mark's answer, and this answer is, so like I kind of like to say that I have engaged in a soy boy recovery program for some young men, and one of my first things I offered these guys, and one guy, he was like, he wanted to maybe be trans himself to a girl, and I'm like, well, why don't you eat some beef? Here's some hamburger. Eat some beef, and maybe stop eating like things that are fried, in vegetable oils. Stop eating processed junk food. He's a single young man, doesn't live with anybody. He's living by himself. He's camping most of the time. I'm like, just, you need to eat some beef, eat some meat.
I wouldn't be surprised if most people with things that are considered mental health problems, which being trans is one. I'm not saying that there's no such thing as people who would just want to live as a different gender, but I think that 90% of people with any kind of mental health problem can turn it around themselves with their diet and with working out and doing things that make them happier.
Yes. So anyways, like and I was like, just eat beef. You don't have to eat anything else. Just eat some beef for like several days.
And beef is like the best animal.
And like, just like whole fruits and vegetables, but like none of this processed stuff, because he's basically, like going to a convenience store and getting, breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day. And so the other thing too is what I really, really like, especially for like teenagers, is like, you don't have, like, if you're living at home with your parents, you should be like building skills and honing those skills. And I really like apprenticeship programs. Like if you just show up to like a farm and you'll be like, hey, listen, I need a job. And the guy's like, well, you don't have any experience. I don't want to hire you. And you'd be like, listen, I will just like work for free for a week. You don't even have to pay me, because like when you show up and you don't know how to do the job and you have no experience, you're now a distraction to the guy and a potential liability. So if you're like, oh, I'll just do this for free. Well, here's a pitchfork. Here's a shovel. Go shovel that manure over there. Like there's always those, go stack that hay. I mean, there's a lot of low skilled jobs that can sort of be like, done.
Also, when you've got to speak the language of the person who's you're trying to get hired by. So if you're talking about a small business person, in many cases, they're the kind of person that went to work at 15 or 16 years old, and they fancy themselves that they would have offered their services for free, that they really wanted to be one of these, these hardworking young people. Whether it's true or not, they imagine it's true. I certainly do. And, when you start saying things like that to them, there's no way that they're going to be able to say no.
Yeah, that's very true. Like there's a local huge tree company in town. I think they're called A.W. Brown. And they like do a bunch of land clearing. This lot's full of like, I don't know, $50 million worth of equipment. It's a big outfit. And the guy who's like the foreman there, he basically said that he started working for, John Brown or whatever his name was, when he was 9 years old. Now, he's like, we'd all go to jail if we let a 9-year-old work with us today. But he was 9 years old, and he's out there with, real life lumberjacks, being a lumberjack. And his job was like, shoveling the mud off the tracks of the machine at the end of the day so it wouldn't freeze to the ground, and checking the oil and just washing windows and, just making sure
whatever they could give him to do.
Right. And there's always it's just kind of like being on a fire department. Like if you're a volunteer firefighter, I was hanging out at the fire department with my uncle when I was 14 years old. I technically couldn't be on the fire department, but I could be at the fire station rolling up hose, cleaning things up, helping guys put gear away. And
it's just, like my sister's boyfriend that's staying here right now. He said that his great grandpa that he lived with would just send him to go hang out with the boys at the golf club that do the following them around and what the lackeys, the
caddies.
The caddies, there we go. Wrong word. So he would send him and say, "Hey, caddies, watch my great grandson." And then he basically got not really work experience, but interest in work. What are you trying to say, Dodger? Turned you back up. You're breathing kind of in the mic there.
I'm so sorry.
You and all that breathing.
At either rate, no. I'm just kind of hoping to share my experience with other listeners. I mean, if it started out just with a paper route at the age of 10. And I built that, and rich friends that were, I say rich friends, friends that came from wealthy households. I came from very low class. We were probably the poorest people in our neighborhood, but I learned a good work ethic at a very young age because my mom said, "All right, I'll feed you. I'll put clothes on your back. And I'll put a roof over your head. That's about all I can do for you." And if I wanted anything else, and so I guess I developed a good work ethic from a very young age. And
that work ethic is, to my mind, that work ethic is the number one thing that I would be looking for from any employee. The next thing I'd be looking for is initiative. Jay was talking about it here when he was saying something to the effect of, go home and figure out the top 10 questions that customers ask, research it, and have an answer. Just to be the kind of person that solves problems, attempts to solve problems. And, if there's trash on the ground, pick it up. You don't wait for your boss to tell you to do everything.
Yeah. Every time I go places with my kids and there's trash on the ground, we just pick up trash. They're like at Pork Fest up at the kid playground, there was like no trash cans up there. So every evening, me and my kids are just walking around picking up trash, and they were, my daughter's, body slamming my son, running over to pick up the, because there's one piece of trash to pick up, and they both want to get it. So there was like the competition to do it. And then like 3 days into this, there's like 7 or 8 kids all running around picking up trash when when they see me and my kids picking up the trash, and it just like, it sets an example. And the thing is whatever we do, our kids want to do. In fact, whatever we talk about doing, I've learned, you just talk about doing something, and then next thing you know, your kids want to do it. Like we were having a conversation with a friend about S kickers, poop kickers. Which
is that a real job?
Well, it's like muck boots, so like, oh, you got your S kickers on, my friend says.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So my daughter goes, "Dad, what's a poop kicker?" And then we're talking about poop kickers being the muck boots, and you can go kick poop with them. And then my son goes, "I want to go kick poop. Can we go out in a pig pen and kick poop?" So we just walked around and kicked poop in the pig pen together. And one of the things we do is we kick the pig poop and the cow poop because we want to look in it and see what's in there for seed. So as we're kicking the poop around, we're seeing that there's a bunch of whole corn in the cow poop because I didn't have any ground corn, and I'm feeding them a little bit of whole corn, which they're basically not really digesting. So that's why it's important to grind your corn. And then my kids are like, "Oh, that's corn. Can I eat that corn?" I'm like, "No, you don't want to eat that corn." And but what happens is we'll let the chickens out there, and the chickens go clean all that corn up. But then we also have we feed some barley that's sprouted, but it's whole, and there's a little bit of that in the poop. And then right now we got a bunch of what's called crushed barley. So it's whole barley that they crush, and we get it in the bag crushed. And there's none of that in the poop because it's already crushed, and the animals totally digest it, the pigs and the cows.
My friend who has a 7-year-old. One day she had a 7-year-old girl-sized bra, and she was like, "Where did you get this?" And apparently one of her friend's mom gave it to her, which is a whole other story. Like, that's kind of like something you shouldn't do without asking somebody's mom, a 7-year-old. And anyways, she was telling her, like, "Where'd you get this?" She told her where she got it, and then she's like, "My back pain went away when I started wearing my bra." She was like copying all the stuff that she's heard her mom say.
Yep.
And that's just like, first of all, I mean, it's messed up to give a 7-year-old a bra without asking the mom. That's crazy. So she was kind of mad about that. But also she was like, "Shut up. That's not true."
Bras are dangerous.
She just wanted to do what her mom was doing.
Right. Bras are dangerous. There is definitely a massive link between chronic bra wearing and breast cancer because it cuts off it doesn't allow the nodes. So there's lymph nodes in your armpit. That the toxins from your breasts move through the lymph nodes or move to the lymph nodes into your armpit. And then the reason you have hair in your armpit is because so you can sweat out toxins, so your body can detoxify.
And I think that I figured something out just now, because I always think that some like fat ladies have ugly armpits, and I just realized why. It's because like they wear the bra makes this little pushed up part right around their armpits, and then it's just collecting toxins, and then later when they get older their armpits look way worse. But also skinny ladies that work out too much have weird cracked looking armpits. But we also have a caller on the line. Oh, sorry, David from New Mexico. I just pressed drop, but I did not mean to drop David from New Mexico. I just clicked the wrong button. So David, if you're listening, you can call back, and I'm sorry about that.
So the armpit thing real quick.
I've done it too, Bonnie.
The armpit thing, if you basically look in the mirror and you hold your arm up and you look at your armpit and it's bulging, that is, it is not, it is because that is a swollen lymph node and it is not detoxifying. So one of the things that blocks up your lymph nodes in your armpits is when people put on like certain types of deodorant and antiperspirants. So there's like some kind of antiperspirant or deodorant that, I guess antiperspirant is what it is. So it sort of like plugs up your pores so you don't sweat.
Yeah,
like,
it's aluminum in it.
Yeah, so aluminum's like chromium. It happens to be like that ingredient, which is like very toxic, and it collects in your brain and it collects in your mammary glands. And it starts causing issues like breast cancer and Alzheimer's and stuff like that.
I totally believe that, because fat cells, they collect toxins.
And your so your pit should look like a pit, not a bump, like you were saying. So that's just something like especially women should be observing about themselves. That is the condition of their armpits. And if you are using an antiperspirant, then you're literally blocking up, these ducts, these glands that need to excrete toxins.
Man, there's all kinds of drama about my favorite deodorant online. It's so stupid. Like, there's Twitter and Instagram drama about Van Man's deodorant, which I hate that it's called the Van Man's. It's not calling the user a man. It's saying the Van Man created this deodorant. But it's such good deodorant without having any antiperspirant. It is amazing. It has like charcoal and coconut oil. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But I hate that there's all kinds of stupid drama around it just because I'm like, I don't want this to go away. It's just that they're like, oh, you can buy beef tallow for way cheaper on Amazon, but he claims he uses better beef tallow, whatever. And I just think that's so stupid. My sister, I was trying to tell her about it, my deodorant, because you saw deodorant in my bathroom with aluminum in it, and it was not mine. Well, I figured out it was my sister's, but she doesn't really listen to me about anything like health related, so I don't think she's going to change it, because lots of people are just like, I can't not have antiperspirant or else I'll sweat. And I used to feel the same way, like a couple years ago.
You need to sweat. It's very important.
Well, I found out that if I work out, I don't excessively sweat. So if I'm working out, I sweat, and then I'm not sweating through the day just from like driving or doing nothing, you know? Like that's why I used to think I needed an antiperspirant, because I'd just like be sitting there and I'd sweat. But if you work out, you just get rid of that, I think.
And if your body is sweating for a reason, there's two reasons to sweat: to basically get rid of toxins, and also it's a refrigeration effect to cool you down. But it's very important to sweat. It's very healthy for us. There's this YouTube doctor. Her name is Rhonda Patrick, I think is her name. I could have that wrong, but if you check her out, she's been part of some of this research I've been doing, sort of in my, for my Investing in Our Posterity lecture series. About health and stuff. And she talks about vigorous, intermittent exercise, like working as hard as you
Sprints?
can. Sprints could be vigorous, intermittent exercise, climbing trees, logging, shoveling manure.
I hate all this ideas.
But
these ideas.
Work really, really hard for like 4 minutes.
Jump roping worked for 4 minutes.
Yeah,
all right, that's
fine. Then vigorous, intermittent, and then take like 4 minutes off and just like kind of be easy. So like stacking hay is like one of these things. Like you can stack hay like an animal for 4 or 5 minutes, work really hard, and then you can just take it easy and really pace yourself.
Helps you with sweating?
Well, what it does is there's a lot of studies that show that it does all kinds of things like brain benefits. It gets like the lactic acid that your muscles produce when you work them really hard. When that gets into the brain, it does like a lot of positive benefits, to like brain activity and brain function.
I would suggest jump roping because it also makes your lymph move.
Well, I would suggest like things that need to happen anyways, like stacking the hay and splitting the firewood, and hiking through the hiking through the woods, doing stuff like snowshoeing, for example. That's
I do
like
want
a really
to get
good
this
workout.
caller on. It looks like we have a caller. I probably pressed the wrong button. Unscreened caller, what's on your mind? Because we have a few minutes left.
Hello. My name's Mark. I'm from Pennsylvania.
What's on your mind, Mark?
I was listening earlier when Jay was talking about his girls milking cows. I heard love and respect, and that really moved me because I'm not proud of this. I just want to say this to frame my statement. I'm a cranky old man, and I'm glad I got that. And when he spoke about his wife, I heard a lot of red flags. I mean, these people are corrupt, and this is terrible. And it's kind of like money over love. They're not caring about our loved ones. And I know everybody gets this. But,
you're right. He loves his kids, and the government wants to take them away and make them live with some strangers.
Well, they didn't get that far. They just wanted to interview him. But, that, ultimately leads to that stuff because the federal government gives a large financial incentive to, the state of New Hampshire to take children away, to put them in foster care, to do these kind of things. But yes, I absolutely love my kids. I love being a dad. I was the oldest brother of, 6 kids. And I really enjoyed raising my younger brothers, teaching them how to, work. My brother Christopher was, I was 12 when he was born, and his girlfriend, now he's 30 or 30 something, and his girlfriend says, yep, that boy gets his dopamine hits from going to the farm and working hard, and that's what he was doing when he was a little kid. So yeah.
Oh, it looks like I don't have Mark anymore, but there is another anonymous caller on. What's on your mind, unscreened caller?
Hey, I love all the ideas for how to work out and all of that. I actually occasionally I walk around for exercise, and a lot of times I find myself picking up garbage. It's a really good idea.
Oh, that's a great idea. Like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But you have something
I bring
in
a little
5
bag.
seconds.
Yeah, right. I just wanted to give a little follow-up with the legal advice that I got. I got my ticket.
I think you're going to have to call back tomorrow. I'm sorry. It's Free Talk Live, and we're on 7 to 10 Eastern Time every night. You can find us, and you can call in at any time, but just don't do it right at the end. Peace.
Still coming up short at the supermarket? I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. You could be suffering shrinkflation. Same price, less stuff. It's not your imagination. That cereal box is skinnier. That bag of Doritos is now a half-ounce smaller, averaging 5 fewer chips per, according to Forbes, which reports that a bottle of Aleve has gone from 100 caplets to 90. Cottonelle Mega Roll toilet paper shrank from 340 sheets to